All right, gamers, what's up? It's Joseph K, aka Kosher White Wine, and I am here with Eddie, spice trader, flute player, and all-around Renaissance man, all of those things. And we're just here marking the end of the week. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you today?
Yes, I'm doing good. Been working on a lot of stuff, so I'm excited to just have a chill end of the week live stream here.
Do you have any stuff you want to plug before we get started?
Sure. I mean, my website, Midwestern Marks, and the YouTube channel are what we've been trying to grow recently. Trying to funnel that audience off TikTok.
Yeah.
And we're working on our print journal right now. It's completed, the American Journal of Socialist Studies. We just have to print it. So yeah, people want to buy that. It'll be available for sale soon.
I dig that. I have also been trying to get following on YouTube, but I don't know how to make videos, so I just kind of go live and speak my mind. And anytime in the back of my head, I'm telling myself that's not going to work. I say, it's exactly what Black Red Guard does, and it works for him.
Yeah.
With that out of the way, I actually had a question, an important question, because I was reading about Che Guevara today, and I was reading about this idea of the new man, and I don't know what it means. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it was essentially, so Che was he thought the Soviet version of socialism was too bureaucratic, and he thought they too closely replicated the capitalist mode of production. And he much preferred China and Mao's idea of cultural revolution, which obviously we know the cultural revolution was, the idea behind it might have been better than its execution.
Yeah, you can say that.
Right. But essentially the idea was to create a new man, erasing the individualism that you're implemented, or that capitalism puts inside of you, this money hungry kind of, I only care about myself, screw everyone else mindset. Right. And Che said the socialist man, the new man is above individualism. He puts the collective first before himself. And that's how Che lived his own life, and that was his big thing. And he would scold the other revolutionaries anytime he thought they were being selfish, because he thought everybody should put the collective first. And that's why Fidel, when he talked about Che, he said Che was a man from the future. He's like the kind of man that's going to be born into socialism when you don't grow up in a world of individualism. When you grow up in a collective world, your environment crafts how you act, and yeah, so Fidel said he was a man from the future.
That is big. I was talking about this with someone in real life. We were talking about how important this concept is, because I said if I created from scratch, if I played God and I implemented our perfect communist society, I built everything the way that it needed to be built and all the implements were as they needed to be, we would revert back to the way that we are fairly quickly. Because and it's not like human beings are so greedy it doesn't work. It's, there needs to be a little bit of change in how we think, in the same way any sort of transition does. And that's why it's really important where people say things like, but this goes against what we do right now. Like, I agree with that. Communism is totally antithetical to what we're doing right now. Your capitalist mindset would not be effective or acceptable or notable. But that's the case in most animal societies and most previous human societies, just in a basic level, was like, if you hoard all the resources and everyone else is starving, like, yes, they will take your resources. Like, that's what happens. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh my God. Apparently there's a new Republican thing that they're not going to take the vaccine either. I just was seeing that today. I follow like 2 Republicans, and it was like, who's going to take the vaccine? I know I'm not. And it was like about Dr. Seuss. Like, they love Dr. Seuss now, even though Dr. Seuss was like the biggest lib. He was a New Deal liberal, and he had some good cartoons, and then he had some bad cartoons.
Right.
The anti-Nazism is cool, but the stuff about the Japanese was, not great. But what can you do?
Yeah, that's funny. All of a sudden, everybody's an expert on Dr. Seuss overnight.
And just and the publisher pulled the books. He didn't pull the books. I just don't understand. And everyone's just, oh my God. Like, people care about it reminds me of when I was little. My mom used to, when we were done playing with toys, when we grew out of them, she would give them away because we weren't going to use them. And I assume I did this too, but I don't remember it. But I do remember recently, you know, when my sister was younger, maybe 7 years ago, my mom would be like, all right, like, you don't play with this doll anymore. And that was the moment that, like, what are you talking about? Like, this is my favorite toy. You can't give it away. And I feel like people are like that with Dr. Seuss. You have like 60-year-olds who suddenly are just like, this is endemic to who I am. Like, how dare you? And it's like, relax. It's 3 books. He has a lot of books. Like, suddenly now you care about Dr. Seuss. They should have preemptive shit. They have to find authors who drew racist images and then defend them ahead of time and just be like, this is okay. I'm okay with this. My white kids weren't bothered by this racist imagery. I don't see the problem here.
Right. That's hilarious. It's the exact same concept. Once something's taken away, they like to freak out. But that's, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's the political theater, and that's what most of liberals versus liberals versus conservatives is in our political theater, is arguing over this culture war. You know, this, we're not going to do anything to actually help black communities. You know, this is the liberal class, but we're going to take Dr. Seuss off the shelves, you know, and then the Republicans be like, no, I love Dr. Seuss. It's like, you don't know Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. And to me. Yeah. No, continue.
Yeah, and then the news cycle for a week is flooded with Dr. Seuss as, you know, Biden's dropping bombs on Syria and not doing anything to help people in America. So
yeah, I mean, it's what it is. I mean, this is another thing. I had the privilege of talking to Ben Burgess yesterday, and we had a great discussion. But one of the things that we covered was we were talking about how we want, obviously, the majority of people to agree with us. Like, that's a good thing. You know, you don't have to be a democratic socialist to think, oh, it's good to have the majority of people to agree with you. Obviously, and that's what we want. And it seems like there are people on the left who are like totally not open to that. I saw someone like, oh, can there be like culturally conservative socialists? And I was like, well, you know, first of all, it depends on what you mean. Like, if you mean like fascists, like, then no. Like, if you mean like, you know, culture of tradition, like posting naked Greek men on Twitter a weird amount, you know, for someone who claims to hate like any sort of, you know, whatever, we can get it. The point, like, no, obviously that doesn't have a place in the left. But if you want like a country of 300 million people to be leftist, which we do, then, you know, we're not open racism and misogyny and transphobia, but like, you're going to have some people who are like culturally like moderate, and people like don't seem to get that. Like, do you want people to agree with us or not? Like, this is not a culture war. And once people awaken to class issues, they will become more progressive. That's what happens, because you realize that all the bastions of things that you give a shit about are not what the real battles are. Like, I don't know about you, when I turn on CNN now, which I have not done in a while because I'm not at home. I don't have a TV here, but I'm like watching it. You almost just have to crack up with some of the stuff they say, because, you know, you understand what they're for and what their goal is and who they're defending. Mm-hmm. When they're just like, this is an attack on our democracy. Like, this only happens in other countries. People understand that, and then they'll.
Yeah, part of what I've been doing for YouTube is just taking CNN clips and being like, just breaking them down. You know, it's the hyperbole. The attacks on our democracy, you know, Trump, the dictator. Like, we have a dictatorship of capital, regardless of who the president is.
Like, see if Trump tried to nationalize the oil industry. Like, see how much power he'd have. Like, watch how quickly everything becomes an issue. Like, people are like, oh, people don't care that Trump is like, you know, this horrible, creepy guy, and certain people don't. That's true. But if he tried to nationalize oil, you watch how fast his behavior at these beauty pageants would become a nationally syndicated issue from all sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, suddenly they do care about women. Like, now that the money is under threat.
As soon as you threaten the wealth, which brings me to something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, go for it.
Glenn Greenwald, did you see his interview?
Oh, I want to talk about this. I didn't see the interview because I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I saw it was about the Tucker Carlson, right? No, I don't want to jump ship.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson, Trump, and Steve Bannon. He called them all socialists.
Yeah. That was awesome. I personally had no idea that was the thing.
Yeah, his argument is just that, like, their rhetoric is populist, and then he tries to change the definition of socialism using Latin American countries who have had, you know, and these Latin American countries who move towards socialism, like Bolivia, Venezuela, Lula in Brazil, like, they have to function within global capitalism, right? They have to make concessions, or they're going to be just starved out from the rest of the world economy. Yeah. So they make concessions towards privatization. And then Greenwald uses that to argue that Tucker Carlson is also a socialist in the vein of like Lula and Evo Morales and like these Latin.
And was it like? And I mean, I didn't see the entire context. Was it a tweet? Was it like a whole clip?
A whole interview with the Daily Caller.
Jesus, is Greenwald like a I don't know. I just like, he obviously does good investigative reporting. Is he just more like a centrist populist, like Jimmy Dore type? Like, what's his deal?
I would compare him to like Chris Hedges, where it's like they're kind of like real far left, like socialist, but also like not. They haven't read any theory, so they don't have like a strict definition of what socialism is.
Interesting. Oh yeah, I definitely get that with Hedges sometimes. So just be like, I'm a radical post-Keynesian Marxist anarchist, and I'm like, you know what? All of those things.
Sure.
Go for it, man. Like if someone became president and described themselves like that, I'd be like, all right, like I'm on. Like, go for it, man. You do you. No, I love Chris Hedges. I had been trying to get in contact with him because I read what was his most recent book? Now I'm totally forgetting. Well, I'm glad we rehearsed this before I had him on, because that would be really fucking embarrassing. Now I have to look it up. But his something Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt. That's what it was. I guess it wasn't even that recent. It was like 2012, but I just read it. Regardless, illustrated. It was incredible. So I wanted to talk about that with him, but I have no way of contacting him. He's a cool guy. Chris Hedges is great.
He is. I love his analysis. What's that book about?
He basically goes around the country looking at places like West Virginia that have been destroyed by these coal companies, and the opioid crises and all that. Basically, just talking to Camden, New Jersey. He went to just talking to people who have just been totally disenfranchised for one reason or another in these areas, and just looking at it. Some of these places, especially in West Virginia, there's that one county that's like the second poorest in the entire North America. It's just so sad.
It is. Have you seen what's the name of the movie? Shoot, it's about the Union Coal Company. It might even, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank, but there's a movie, and even the Tyler Childers song called "Coal." I've played that in the video before.
Tyler Childers, who's that?
Oh, you don't know? Sorry, I'm showing my country or whatever. Midwest.
No, I only listen to. I pretty much only listen to metal at this point. My music is. There is a great one I'll plug. There's a black metal band called Panopticon, and for those that don't know metal, black metal does not mean when black people make metal. Very common misconception. I don't know why you would assume that would be the term, but it's not. Just FYI, because I have some people just like, oh, like I heard you listen to black metal, and then they'll just like send me a band, and I'm just like, that is just a band with a black guy in it. Like, yeah, like that's what you mean, right? And I'm like, no, it's not what I mean. But there's a great, sorry, I got off topic. That literally happened to me like a week ago. Someone was like, oh, on stream, you said you like black metal. And they sent me this band called Seven Dust, which is, by the way, a great band, but just not black metal. It's just their lead singer, John Witherspoon, is black. And I was like, well, whatever. But this band called Panopticon, I'm still off topic now, made a song called Coal Miner that's great. So check it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, basically it's not black metal. Okay, yeah, I'll plug it. And then talk to you about your song, because I went so off track.
No, that's basically what I was saying. Is Tyler Childers grew up in those areas where like the coal companies, destroyed it, and then when all the coal jobs and stuff were outsourced, the crisis, and that's essentially what the song is about. And yeah, I played that in a video about nationalizing the energy industry, and I try to make the argument like, yes, I'm an eco-socialist. Yes, I want to preserve the environment, but the way to do that is by nationalizing the energy industry. And then, you have to keep in mind that a lot of people's jobs are reliant on fossil fuels. So as a socialist, you can't just be like, yes, like there were a lot of socialists calling to ban fracking. They're like, Biden's a piece of shit because he didn't ban fracking. It's like, well, he would have lost the election if he called to ban fracking.
And I think there's
thousands of jobs.
There's also just like a way to do it. One of the things that I was proposing, which is like, I think it's just so basic, is if you nationalize this industry, then I mean, not even slowly, I'd say you quite rapidly phase it out and transition a lot of these jobs to environmental cleanup, basically undoing it. In the Hudson Valley, for example, I mean, there's massive unemployment where I'm in school. Hudson River is still disgusting. I mean, it's better than it used to be. Like in the 70s and 80s, it was like actually if you put your arm in there, it like might fall off. And now it's just like, well, if you drink it, you'll die, but not like in a gross way, I guess. And it's like doesn't look green. So, but like people could help clean that up, and like there are like small things that people could do to phase that. But I agree with you. I mean, you can't just disenfranchise a bunch of people.
No, we need to pitch it as a way to build new jobs. Exactly.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Why do we not have jobs building renewable energy sources so we can transition away? Like you said, it could happen fairly quickly if we put our energy into it, but like it's going to take worker ownership, and you're not going to get worker ownership if your whole plan is just to day one ban everybody's fossil fuel jobs, because you're not going to get the workers on your side.
Yeah, and I I totally agree with you. I think it's a really fair point. I was writing about this. I dropped an article. I'm not going to put it in chat because these are important things. But I was writing an article about this, and I'm writing a second article about this sort of like the leftist disconnect, especially on the coast at universities. You have these people who are like so disconnected from like Americans, but in an odd sort of way, in a very capitalistic way. And I think they see like the proletariat as almost the same way capitalists see it, as pawns they can exploit, in terms of they just kind of like want to, like, even people who preach like revolution are just like, oh, they just want to like throw people out to die. Like they don't actually have any interest in this. So when they're just like, oh, take away the jobs or revolution, they're not planning on actually doing anything. It's people that are going to suffer.
Yes.
It's a very reactionary
fetishization of the working class.
Yes. Yeah. And a fetishization of power.
Like you said, and like you said, the masses might have some, like, we were talking about like conservative social views, and of course we don't mean we want people who are outright racist to be in our movement, but it's like, a lot of working class Americans are Christian. So are you going to go, as a student at Rutgers University and be like, you can't be Christian if you're going to be in my movement? Like, you're never going to get the working class on your side then, No,
it's just so stupid. And it's like, I got to turn off this light now. It's too bright. And it's, I hate that. I wish I had my ring light. It was a mistake. It was a mistake to give my ring light away. 1 second. I'm going to adjust in the flight. No, I mean, I totally agree. That was one of the biggest flaws of 20th century socialism, was the attitude around religion. And there are some people that fail to acknowledge that still, who are just like, no, like, but God isn't real. Like, don't you understand? And I'm just like, that's not that. No, like,
it's not the point.
That cannot, and also that cannot be the basis. By the way, one of the biggest things too is like, say God isn't real. Ben Burgess actually wrote about this. Everyone needs to read Logic for the Left, because now I'm thinking about my arguments like this, and it's really helpful to contextualize. I'm realizing that the premises of the argument, God isn't real, thus abolish religion, that does not work. Like that is the premise, and that is the conclusion. That's not an argument, as he says. It's not an argument to get anything done. You can't just abolish religion,
right?
Because God isn't real. What about people who center their life around religion? What about communities? What if you're wrong? What
about the Sandinistas, who had 3 different factions, and the one who was able to actually come to power was Ortega and the liberation theology faction, who were like, we're going to use Catholicism synthesized with socialism. And like, if that's your material conditions of your country and that's what can lead you to socialism, there's, you got to understand that religion plays a cultural role more, and there's more to it than you just deciding whether you think God is real or not, it's part of individualism. People are like, my ideology needs to be the most correct, right? I don't believe in God. I believe in this, and this. Like, that's less important than building power. Being correct on every issue is much less important than building working class solidarity.
And that's the thing I'm writing about, and I love that you say that. Do you want to be right, or do you want to achieve goals? It's 2 different things. Do you want to be right, or do you want to? It's an entirely different orientation. And it depends on I'm not saying be wrong. I'm not saying if someone says you're wrong, just ignore them. But
right.
Yeah, but you have to be focused on your actions and what you do. That's what's important. I don't care what you say. I don't give a shit. Like, oh, you're a Maoist? Like, do you leave your house? Like, I don't give a shit. If you
Right.
ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Is there any drama I missed? Because I haven't been on social media now. Catch me up.
On TikTok?
Yeah, I want to hear
a lot. The
Ooh.
left wingers on TikTok started a campaign to block Benjamin politics.
Solid.
And it was funny. Some of them were taking it pretty serious, but a lot of us, like me and Harrison, I don't know if you know Harrison, we were looking at it more like a joke. Just like, it's funny because Ben uses all he does is stitch our content. So blocked, you go around it. So Ben ended up saying, like, we're scared of him. What?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, if everyone blocks him, he's just done.
Right.
Then he has to
find a different way to get our videos.
Yeah, but it's also like he also is the perfect person who's like reacting. He has no goals of his own. He only cares like he is why reactionaries are weak, right? If you react, you are totally enslaved, quite literally, by an actor in your mental state. Like you have no, if you only react, you have no positive movement towards anything, and that's him. He just
and he and all he's doing to react is pulling from the treasure trove of corporate nonsense that the Heritage Foundation and the Hoover Institute and all these libertarian think tanks have pumped out.
Eddie, that's a bold claim, but have you seen the new article from the Cato Institute?
I have not.
No, it's a joke. It's Cato Institute is a
same thing.
Yeah. That's him. No, I got it.
Right. I'll be like, privatization in Bolivia was bad. Privatization of the water was bad, and that's why it caused mass uprisings. And Ben's like, despite the people who died of dehydration and the mass protests, the Heritage Foundation said that the privatization was good. Debunked. It's like, okay, Ben.
But that's the thing. I don't care. Like he really just cares about being right, and I don't give a shit. Like the amount of comments I get telling me I'm an idiot because I think like people should be able to drink water and not have to pay for it. Like, fine. I mean, I got a DM today. Someone's like, are you really the guy that wants everyone to be a slave? And I was like, wait, like, let me catch up on how that got to be. Because, of course, the bonehead dude stitched my video and went like, if everything's free, then you're just a slave to the government. And everyone
responded to that.
Just like, oh, my God.
Yeah, I responded to that guy's video and gave him, like, basically the argument that's in Engels' private property, his origins are, like, when humans lived communally, there were some people who would go fetch and clean water and then they'd share it with the group. And some people went and hunted and they'd share it with the group. And that's very normal. That's how families work and that's how humans work. You share with each other, but that's not how our system's set up.
And it's amazing. I had someone say, what if you don't make people pay for water, what's the I can't even get through this without laughing. What's the incentive to go get it?
It's too good.
And I was just like, I mean, I just can't believe people are so in this propaganda of like, if you just think 1 second.
I mean, that's Mark Fisher's
doesn't even want to
realism right there.
Part of me doesn't even want to go like social Darwinist, but it's just like in every other society, like any family that was like, why would I get water if you don't pay me? Like, how long does that strategy last evolutionarily? Like, like that doesn't work. I'm sorry, get your own water. And people are so deluded. Like, you have people living in cities, and they're like, okay, allow water to be free. Where do you get it? And it's like, well, that's the issue. Like, you live by a river, you should be able to drink the water pretty much. Like, everyone's like, oh, with our technology, that's not possible. And I'm like, again, like, you're missing it.
Right.
With our technology, that should be possible. It should be a goal, actually.
Yeah, I mean, especially with something like water. And the name of that documentary, or there's a documentary on the Bolivian privatization of water and the police.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Even the Rain, because even the rain's privatized, right? So the people are collecting the rain to drink it, rainwater from the sky, and the police are coming and like emptying the buckets because they're like, no, this is privatized. Like, that is private property. It is the state enforcing these laws, that give natural resources that are available to all humans to a certain group of people so they can profit off it. And to act like that's natural and to act like that's the only way that humans could fetch water, which they need to survive for themselves, is hilarious. And it proves capitalist realism, that people just cannot see beyond our system unless, I don't know, some people can, but
the idea that anyone would be okay with the privatization of water is utterly ridiculous to me. I just that doesn't even bother thinking about for me. That
right.
Frankly, land too, but we'll get there. But I don't see how land is even a little bit less absurd than water. Like, I should be able to go.
Right, it's basically the same.
Yeah, like I should be able to just go on land. I think that should just be allowed. And I want that AOC clip. I don't have many clips saved on the StreamYards thing, but I want that clip where she's like, "We're radicals who believe radical things," and I just want to play that anytime I say something that should be patently obvious. Like, you should not starve to death because your job doesn't pay you enough.
And that's what people were criticizing, hashtag block Ben, like, you just don't want to handle him, or you can't handle his arguments because he's debunking you. It's like, no, I don't want to have the conversation of, do people deserve to die of thirst because they're poor? I think if you're arguing for that, I don't think you should belong in the public discourse, and I don't even want to waste my time on you. I'm going to block you.
But that's the thing with the libertarians too, is like they have no path to action, so I don't take them seriously.
Right.
Like, what are they going to do? Like, there's no chance a libertarian wins the election. There are like 4 libertarians outside of the U.S. I mean, like, straight up, like, most countries don't even have a libertarian party. So that, I mean, like a party, and you can find a party of like every variety in every country. There was a Jewish Nazi party, for God's sakes, and it's just no, I'm not even kidding. There was a Jewish Nazi party.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. But the point is, if your country cannot muster a libertarian party, like, I don't think there's like an actual like one of these, like, not India. I mean, then there you go. Like, you can't even find it. There's a Trotskyist party in every country, for God's sakes, but there can't be a libertarian party. I know I'm like appealing to like the majority here, but I also don't care. Like, if you suck that badly, like, sometimes that is a good.
Well, it's a very U.S. centric thing because our government is so thoroughly controlled by the bourgeoisie. People hear the argument, let's get rid of the government. They're like, oh yeah, 40% of my paycheck goes to taxes and it's all spent on bullshit. Yeah, I'm down with this idea of abolish the government. But then you take it one step further. It's like, well, who buys the government? It's the capitalists.
Yeah.
But libertarians can't take that extra step. They're just like, everything is the government's fault. It's like, that's not a material analysis of how capitalism has developed. The government plays a role, or the state plays a role, but it's a role of oppressing those who work the land and helping those who own the land. And until you address that, the fact that a small minority own, whereas the majority work, you're not going to be able to change society just by like criticizing the government. But it's become this thing in the U.S. because our government's so shitty, and you have people like Benjamin Politics, spreading this Heritage Foundation nonsense of everything is the government's fault. Which, by the way, the Heritage Foundation came to my school. And I ended up.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. So one of my teammates.
College or high school? Oh, college. Wait, you're cutting out.
College, yeah. My teammate Bryce was an economics major, and he put on this event, and the economics. This was when I was like studying economics, and one of the professors was like, "Eddie, I know you're a socialist or whatever. You should come provide some pushback." So I did, but. I don't know. It was just really interesting to hear the guy like essentially lay out like the Heritage Foundation actually has good economic analysis of like Iran. Like, if you look at their page on Iran, it'll be like 70% of their economy is state owned, and it'll tell you some interesting stats. And then it'll be like, this is why Iran's evil and they need full privatization. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It was really interesting to talk to the guy. And yeah.
Just pull up to your school and spread propaganda.
Yeah, it was like, basically they handed out these pamphlets. It was their economic freedom index. So it's like the countries with the most economic freedom do the best. And then, I asked him about Scandinavia. I'm like, what about these Scandinavian countries like Norway with their nationalized oil industry? And his answer was, the European social democracies are doing well because of their private markets, but Venezuela is failing because of their public markets, their public controlled industry. It's like, oh, that's weird how that works.
Yeah, at least he doesn't give the there's another standard right-wing analysis, which is that everybody in these countries looks the same, and that's why they do so well. Have you ever heard that one?
Oh, that one drives me insane, because I'm like, you're saying they're doing well because they're all white? Like, yeah. That's so racist, and it's like that's like a common argument you hear, though. Like
they do it all the time.
Shapiro does it, and like PragerU.
But it's not because of their race; it's just because they have one culture. You say, "Oh my God!" I mean, it's all the time.
It's such a joke.
But that's like the thing. Like I was talking about this. I don't think people take Ben Shapiro seriously anymore. Like, he's so mocked. I think it's a good thing. Yeah. Like, some people do, obviously, and he's still like a big name. But I don't know. Like when I was in the internet in like 2015, it was more like, this is like a smart guy. Like, Ben Shapiro was known as the like, oh, even if you're on the left, you got to acknowledge Ben Shapiro is smart. Right. And now nobody serious thinks that. Like, nobody is out here like, even if you disagree with him, that's one smart dude. Like, he makes a lot of good points. I think his biggest issue was like the more that we're gonna rock with this lighting for now. We're just gonna do it. I think the biggest issue was the more that he became a cultural critic, the more that people were just like, this guy is so out of touch. Yeah. Like it was because he's like an uncomfortable dad, like watching like a sex scene with his son at the movie theater. Like, but like every point that he makes is like that dynamic of just like, I don't know if you ever had that experience, but like, I don't know, you're like
definitely
movie and there's like a kissing scene and you're like sitting there with your parents and you're just like, this is weird. But that's like Ben Shapiro talking about like rap music, like or he's just being racist, but like when he's not being racist, to just be like, WAP, like what's that? And it's like, oh man, like, don't want to hear you talk about sex. Like, I just don't want to hear you talk. And if there's a cultural critic that you're like enormously uncomfortable hearing talk about sex, you're done. Like, you can't be a cultural critic, obviously.
Yeah, I think like even his cultural critiques like fell out of style. Like, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and like you said, everyone was like, oh, he's smart. And sometimes I watch Joe Rogan clips just because it's the most popular podcast in the country, and I like to see what most people are hearing. My roommate listens to it, and he's just a regular working class guy, not a socialist. So I like to hear what they're saying. Like, I heard Joe Rogan say the other day, I don't agree with Ben Shapiro on anything. Like, at a point, his positions on weed and his positions on sex and rap music, it's like, if you're a normal person, you're just like, what the? It's like you said, it's like watching something with your grandpa or your parents.
Yeah.
What the hell's this guy talking about? He's so out of touch.
Yeah. With weed, that's the biggest thing, where it's like these Republicans are like, and I'm not like a big weed guy personally, but I have friends that are, and if you've had like any interaction with people who smoke weed, like first time you've watched someone smoke weed, it's not a big deal. It's just not a big deal. And this is coming from, I've seen other drugs. I'm not going to get into it on YouTube. And like, you've been like, okay, these are big deals. And then you get concerned when your friends are doing it. But like, never once have I had a friend been like, oh, like, we're going to go smoke pot. And I'm like, oh, like, be safe. Like, don't get hit by a car. Like, and so when Ben Shapiro is out there just like, oh no, like, weed is cultural degeneration. Like, you just kind of have to look at him and just say, this guy like is just not even a person I'd want to associate with. Like, on a level of like, I wouldn't even want to introduce him to my friends. Like, I wouldn't want to have.
You hear him talk about that, you're like, he must be like antisocial or something. Like you say, he's never hung out with people who smoke weed, and they just sit on the couch and like fall asleep. And it's like, why is that cultural degeneracy?
Yeah.
Why is this your number one issue that you're freaked out about?
And this is the thing too. It's just like, I mean, and this is and it's also, and this is why he's fallen out of touch, because you have to really play a game here. Because there are some right wingers that I'd be like, all right, like, I could actually hang out with this person. I don't like this person, but I could tolerate this person, or I could even laugh with this person at certain intervals. With Ben Shapiro, it's just like, this person is just annoying and weird. like genuinely weird. Like that's the thing. Like you can be culturally conservative and come off as like normal, and like I don't think it's good to be like super culturally conservative, but a lot of people are, and a lot of quote unquote normal people are. But like that's not what Ben Shapiro comes off as. It's just I don't know. It just gave me cause for optimism. I was thinking about it earlier this week. I was like, like Ben Shapiro gets shit on even by like the edgy libertarian 14-year-olds now. Like nobody takes him seriously, and that's kind of a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah, and corporations have sunk their roots deeper into him. He kind of emerged as this like the cool kids philosopher or whatever,
right.
These controversial ideas, and now he's just you could hear his analysis on Fox News. It's basically just corporate propaganda.
I mean, and it's like and the dagger through it, at least for me, looking at sort of the opinion of him from like your average people that comment on my TikTok even, was the Gamergate thing. Not the Gamergate, sorry. The game stunk thing. I'm getting to cultural outrage things confused. And of course he comes out there just like, but what about the billionaires? Like, won't somebody please consider the billionaires? And it's just like after that, like Ben, people don't give a shit. And that I feel like that kind of put the nail in his coffin, because now like adults listen to him. Like that's like what like adults listen to. And he's just like, if you smoke marijuana, you die. And all the adults are like, yes. Like that's something that like that's exactly something that happens. Like let me go drink. Like I mean that's the adult thing. It's just like the boomer is just like, if you smoke weed, you die. Anyway, like I'm on my 9th pack of cigarettes today, and I've had like 18 shots of scotch before dinner. But if you smoke weed, you'll get cancer. Like trust me. It's just like, oh my God. Because like I don't even have a problem with people being like, oh, personally, I don't smoke weed, or like personally, I don't think it's this good thing. Like that's like me. But just to put that out there is like, you're like, it's not heroin. Like relax. It's incredible.
Right.
How angry he gets.
Yeah, like I agree with you. I don't think anyone should, unless you have a medical condition, I don't think anyone should smoke through the day. It makes you anxious.
Right,
it kills your motivation. You should try and do things during the day, and if you need it as a tool to fall asleep, that's what it is. But you should use it to enhance your life, and it can 100% become a detriment to your life. But like that's the conversation to have. The conversation isn't, this is the devil's lettuce, and if you smoke it, you're gonna get cancer and die, which is what Ben Shapiro's trying to argue. And people who have smoked weed are just looking at him like, you're a goof ass. Like,
yeah, and but that's the thing. Like as it becomes more popular, like even among conservatives, they just kind of look at him and they're just like, you're weird. And I tell leftists this too, by the way. It's just like, if you come off as weird, people are not going to agree with you. And if you come off, and not like, and you can be weird, like I'm weird. I'm an oddball person. Like I do bizarre things. But I think there's a difference between, and maybe I'm wrong, everyone hates me, but from my perspective, there's a difference, between like weird and like Ben Shapiro, where it's like, this is someone I just don't want to hang out with or spend time with. And like a lot of leftists behave that way. Barking. There's like a lot of barking at the Black Lives Matter rallies. I don't know if you saw any of that. Maybe it was just like a thing in like the East Coast, where a lot of these people at these rallies like would start barking at people. And I was like,
what? Like right wingers or
left wingers? Left wingers would just start barking at people like dogs.
I did not see that. What?
Yeah.
You gotta elaborate on that.
Like, it was just like the exact people that you'd expect to be. It was like NYU kids who were just sitting there like barking like wild animals at police officers, because there were no like counter protesters in the city. You didn't have any like like Boogaloo Boys or like right-wing libertarians. One sec, someone's calling me. You didn't have any like Boogaloo Boys or what right-wing libertarians to be like counter protesting. So it was like them and like a bunch of like beat cops, and they were just like barking at them. It was, and like most people there were like I'm confused as to, by the way, all white. There was not a single non-white person doing this, obviously. But like this is the behavior of people who are just like, this is my rally. Like, this is full individualism. It's totally ridiculous. I want to go on PragerU. Someone just said to look at the latest at the recent comments of the latest PragerU community post. How do I do that? What service is this on?
I'm not a part of the PragerU community. I'm a
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Someone for some non-PragerU community. Oh, there's a new socialism in town. Its foundations are more cultural than economic. Identity socialism by Dinesh D'Souza. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
That's not their most recent. That's not their most recent, but I really do want to watch that because that sounds interesting. Back in the 90s, government told us to avoid dietary fat, and so we did. How the Government Made You Fat by PragerU. Okay, that's not the right one either. But I love how it's like I'm reading through them and like every single one is just like, this is the post that people would be like, this is ridiculous about. But every single one is like, oh, nope, like that's just like PragerU having a normal one. Like the government made you fat. Like, okay, it's on YouTube. I thought it was on Twitter, sorry. Okay, we're not even on the right platform. Identity socialism, like based. Okay, this is on the community. Oh, I see what you're talking about now. All right, in the community platform. Mark Twain. Don't let schooling interfere with your education. And PragerU posted that.
Oh, man.
All right, let's see the comments.
Trying to find it right now.
I learned more. No, these are like heartbreaking comments, not even positive. I learned more from Thomas Sowell, Peter Schiff, John Stossel, the History Channel, and PragerU that I ever learned in school.
Oh no. That's so bad. John Stossel, no.
Oh my god. This is insane. I'm self-educated in the ideals of our God-given rights, freedom, civics, and the Constitution. Make America great again. Get your kids out of public schools. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? And you have these
your
people
kids out of the public schools. What?
They have these people there are people who like know that like Mark Twain was like a socialist. So you have comments like, I hate Mark Twain. But Dad, why do you hate Mark Twain? Like why is that the person you hate? Like Mark Twain was like the only person like 200 years ago who's like imperialism might be bad. And everyone's like
right.
stick to writing, man. Like, you know, all right, if you are watching, by the way, we have 14 concurrent viewers. That's amazing. We just got a big bump. Remember to like the video. It helps it get recommended. It helps my channel. And if you want me to become famous and run for president, you should like the video. Oh, wait, they made a posted memorial.
You gotta... So you're writing now? You're like, you've been writing for Medium? You should publish with us. We'd love to publish your stuff. We get like 10,000 weekly viewers at least. What?
Yes, I will text you afterwards. I'll put everything I got. I'll send it to you. I have a bunch of stuff. Dude, here we go. All right. Wait, sorry. Apparently what I was just looking at wasn't the actual thing that PragerU did wrong. Apparently, I'm sorry, then we're done because I can do this all day. Okay. It's a memorial post for Dr. Seuss. Where? I don't know what you're looking at. Oh, here we go. Today is Dr. Seuss's birthday, aka National Read Across America today. And we have to look at the comments of this post. Okay. I should write a new book, How the Left Stole America.
That's the funniest thing is conservatives convincing themselves the radical left is taking over America. And then as the radical left, it's like, God, I wish you were correct.
Yeah, Green New Deal and eggs. Like, first of all, bad pun. And someone said green eggs and crack. Like they're just having a normal one. Oh my God! Wait, this is amazing. Someone said you could just make these you could just make these books totally friendly by removing the racist caricatures. 4 likes, 28 comments. Obviously, that wasn't a popular idea. Hey guys, you can just read the books and not be racist. How dare you? Hey guys, you just don't have to be racist, but you can still enjoy Dr. Seuss. Wait, that wasn't the right one either? I swear to God, I'm going to die. Okay, then we're done. Then we're done with PragerU. I want to do like a whole like PragerU thing. That's how it ends up getting like popular. I want to do like with that time that PragerU said fascism was communism. That wasn't correct.
Yeah. Anytime I respond to PragerU or Ben Shapiro, it does so well.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. This is actually bad even for PragerU. Be who you are. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And what am I supposed to be finding in the comments? I mean, I understand the irony. Because, like, if you say you want to identify as something, they won't expect it. Oh yeah. Hitler wasn't a nationalist. That was the finest moment of PragerU. That's what I want to do. I want to do a debunking. Like, actually, Hitler was a nationalist, and here's why. What if I use the same right-wing logic? His party is called the National Socialist Party, and thus it was nationalist.
National.
It has the word in it, so you know it's true.
The interpretations of World War II at this point are getting absolutely insane, because you have so many people trying to say this is what Hitler was. It's like, you get to the point where you have PragerU saying he wasn't a nationalist. Like, well, then what was he? Like, what was he trying to do?
Too bad the Nazi Party didn't have 12 years of incessant propaganda so you could figure out exactly what they were. Like, we don't do this with anyone else. Like, Hitler wrote like a 500 fucking page book. It almost sounds like I'm defending him here. That's not my point. He was pretty clear. Like, Adolf Reed actually said this. He said we need to get away from this idea of like integrity as like a virtue in and of itself, because he said, like, you know, Himmler had a lot of fucking integrity. Like, he was pretty honest about everything. No one would be like, oh, he lied. I don't know if you know Adolf Reed. You probably do. He's great.
Oh, I love Adolf Reed.
I really want to get him. I really want to get to talk to him, but I have to finish his book, Class Notes. And once I do, I'm going to talk to him. I'll be so hyped. Yeah, but he was basically saying that, like, you know, integrity is not a virtue in and of itself. But oh my God, no, I can't with the Hitler. Hitler was no nationalist. I want to find that clip so I can crack myself up, honestly.
Somebody posted today, one of my friends from college said one of the first things Hitler did was he tore down all the statues and then implemented socialist policies. It's like all the socialist policies in Germany were like building statues of Hitler and stuff to promote his party. Like, that's all the national projects they did were like civic to evoke civic pride.
They built like fucking slave camps with people's money. So yeah, there you go. Socialism.
There you go.
Here is the screenshot. I suppose trigger warning for anyone offended by crude right-wing drawings of depicting Hitler from PragerU, but you probably I wonder what he's saluting. Might it be the nation? Might it be the fatherland? I don't know. Maybe it's socialism. Maybe it's Karl Marx.
It's got to be socialism. As he was allying himself with the corporations, and as he made a law that said anytime his face is used, you have to pay him $1,000 or whatever, and collected millions and millions. So much money. He was one of the richest people ever.
And that's one of the biggest dunks, by the way, on Nazis. I don't know if anyone ever needs those, but if you ever do, Nazis, remember, really like Hitler. Like, that's the first thing with like arguing with like these unironic fascists. They'll be like, he was a good man. And then you're like almost half expecting them to have like a bombshell, like, you know, source of like something where it's like, oh, it's been distorted. And then I'll be like, isn't it true that he like extorted like hundreds of millions of dollars from the German people? And they're just like, yes, but like he was the leader. And I'm like, like having a normal one, I see.
That's it. I haven't talked to many of them before, but that's funny that, yeah, because you would expect them to have some kind of bombshell source. Like when you talk to people who defend Stalin, they've got a lot of arguments, that are legitimate as to like why you shouldn't just hate Stalin as this comic book villain. But that's funny that the people who defend Hitler don't have. They don't.
They do like they do within the like. This is the thing. There are many political philosophies that like I understand why you believe them, and there is a moral case, and I'm like, all right, this person can be moral and believe this. Like social democracy, it's like very obvious. There are many moral reasons why like someone could believe that, and I'd be like, okay, they have like their head on straight. Even like a kind of social liberalism, like there are many good people I know that are just liberals who are just like they want the best people, and there are a lot of people. But then with like fascism, it's almost refreshing because like they don't lie. They'll just be like, oh, like fascist countries are good. And I'm like, why? And they're like, they purged racial minorities. And I'm like, oh. But it's like, I'm so used to arguing with Republicans where like you have to like hours and hours to get it out of them. Be like, okay, but black people are poor because of their culture. But what do you mean by their culture? And where does their culture come from? And what is your problem with their culture? Do you think the culture is material or something innate? Oh, the culture is innate. Why do you think the culture is worse if it's like 7 hours later, they're like, all right, like I'm racist. Right. Where it's like with fascists, they're just like, it's bad because they look different. And I'm like, oh, like, like now we can get to the meat. Like, because arguing with the Republicans is just like, oh my God.
It's
and
so,
like,
it's
and
so
have you had good experiences with women? Like, oh, you've never met one. Like, color me shocked.
You're an incel and also an anti-feminist. I'm shocked.
Someone called me ace-phobic for shaming incels. So I just want to clarify, there is a difference between I don't want to have sex and I'm being shamed for being a virgin. And I actively promote violence against women. And I am also at the same time a virgin. Those are two specifically different things. If you choose not to have sex, all the power to you, not my business. But if your entire political belief system is based around the fact that women don't have sex with you, and you have also not had sex, yeah, I mean, there's not really much else I need to say in that regard, but it's obviously a different thing. Ben Burgess always talks about this. Like, are you comparing? Oh yeah, continue. Sorry, I think we're like off in terms of our audios a little bit. Yeah. So if it sounds like I'm interrupting you, I'm not. Continue.
Oh, sorry. No, that's all right. Yeah, I was just gonna say I've had a libertarian under the age of 18 and a post-leftist under the age of 18 tell me I need to go outside and touch grass. I'm like, I've lived. Why are you telling that to me? I'm wrestling at not to, be egotistical and individualistic, but it's like I spend, every day I go outside and do a combat sport. And I'm going to the Olympic trials in Texas in a month.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I have this 15-year-old who's never had a job in his life, definitely never had sex, saying like, you're an incel, you need to go outside and touch grass.
That's the thing with too. It's like I have so many people in my DMs trying to debate me. Oh my God, the most awkward thing fucking happened. Not even awkward. There was this like girl in my DMs. She's like, debate me, and she had like high school in her bio, right? So I'm like, I'm not debating 14-year-olds. And then she's like, I'm 17, and I was just like, okay, like I'm still not going to debate you. And she was just like, oh, like, are you scared of minors? And I'm just like, all right. Like, this is just enough, because the day before someone messages me like, it's like a libertarian, they messaged me like some racist joke. And I was like, I don't talk to minors, like call me when you're 18. And then I was just like, whatever. And then I was like, wait a minute, like what if they like interpret it as if I actually want them to call me? And I was like, no, like please, like never call me, like ever. Because I could imagine like what if they actually called me like 4 years from now and was just like, I met a woman, like privatization of water is actually a bad idea. Like that's exactly what happened to me. Like much respect to the women in the audience, because like I used to tell that to people like literally like the moment I like started talking, I went to an all boys school growing up, and like the moment I started talking to girls, I was like done with Ben Shapiro. It was like that quick. And it wasn't like they were like Ben Shapiro is dumb. It was just like very quickly I was like, oh, Like, there is more to this. And it wasn't even like a class consciousness thing. It was like like almost just like a consciousness thing of like, oh, like women exist, and like that's it for right-wing politics. And I was like, when I was like 2 years ago, I was still probably like, a social. I didn't know anything about ideology. But I was like, a social democrat type guy. Like big. Bernie is cool, but because he's cool.
Right.
But like, all you have to do is like, women are like, well, like, I'm really not out here to get you, and I'm like, oh, like, really? Like, oh wow, it's that easy. It's insane.
That's hilarious.
But
Shapiro
I'm like, this
was
is
wrong. It's funny how many libertarians like think I'm gonna debate them. Like that kid Alex debates. Alex.debates. He's 17.
I feel bad for him too, because it's like I see myself in him so much, because he's obviously a really bright kid. He's such a bright kid, but he just has not been around. Right. And I empathize with that so much, because obviously my upbringing was like incredibly sheltered, probably even more than his. And he's just, and I am calling myself a bright kid. It's a little bit of a backhand. It's a little bit of a compliment towards myself subliminally, but it's like, no, but like I genuinely do like see myself in him of like, this is guy, like, I feel like if I had it, that's the thing with like a lot of these 15-year-old TikTokers who get quote unquote canceled. It's like some of these people have like 300 fucking followers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, 300,000 fucking followers. I don't know if they're 300. They're like 15. Like, well, if I had an account with that many followers at 15, like,
I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
What if I had my following now when I was in high school?
Yeah, and I'd be. I mean, I don't have as big of a following as you do, but like the stuff that I used to say, but it was like I'd regurgitate propaganda. I remember one of the things I said, even when I got to college. This is like probably a year and a half ago. I said this unironically. I was like, well, wasn't Western culture the first culture to end slavery? Like I said that in like, I was talking to one of my friends, and she said to me, she's like, if I didn't know you, like I'd punch you. And I was like, whoa, like that's not that bad of a comment. Isn't that true? And she laid it out for me as like, no, like you're probably, I mean, like, it's not like an anti-West perspective, but if you want to do that, I mean, Western culture is not like a thing. Like Aristotle wasn't writing like, oh, the Germans in 1800 years will read this. Like there was no like, Western culture. But if you want to play that game, like, no, Western culture didn't end slavery. But it's like that kind of shit, where even that little stuff. And I was 18 years old, like straight up like a college student, and I still regurgitated those little bits of propaganda, and I probably still do sometimes. I'm not like totally awoken. I'm still a white dude who has a privileged ass upbringing. I still probably say dumb shit all the time. But it's like at 15, if the kid I'm thinking of is Gannon, who's just a really nice kid. I genuinely think so. 15 years old, and has what, 600,000 followers, and people are canceling him for cringe religion takes. And it's like, look, I don't agree with it. Like, I don't agree with the stuff he says, obviously. And obviously a lot of it is like problematic. But he's 15. His brain isn't fully fucking formed. Literally, like scientifically, not like in like his brain quite literally isn't fully formed. And
Gannon specifically is a genius for how old he is.
Yeah, at 15 years old, I was still like, both sides are bad, but free markets. I mean, I was still like, in, like the majority of like, and it's like, I get the impetus too, because the thing about this idea of like canceling or calling out is that everybody individually has the right idea of like, he will say some stuff where it's like, he shouldn't have said that. But if you have 600,000 followers and 3,000 people get the same idea, and only 200 of those, out of those 600,000 followers, only 200 of those, are like the weirdos who are like, telling you in graphic ways how you should kill yourself, stuff like that. It's like, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And that's like 200 people. And I'm giving a very kind estimate to how people on TikTok behave. Like, let me be clear. 200 out of 600,000 is not the correct ratio. Most people hide behind their screens. And at 15, if someone sent me messages, let alone hundreds of messages, and I'm sure in his case, thousands of messages, and I mean, myself, I don't have a big platform. I've gotten like hundreds of messages about how to graphically like hurt myself in great detail. And now I'm older, And I know that like I'm not in danger and these are, young kids, but at 15,
Right.
I can't even imagine.
I mean, it sounds like a really privileged thing to say, but people don't understand what it's like to have a platform like that. You don't understand the amount of stuff you read, and one that comes to mind for me is Matt Kinkopf, and I don't know if you saw this, but Matt's a buddy of mine, and like he got attacked for having some bad takes basically, and he freaked out. He like spazzed out like, screw the left, this is why everyone hates you, blah 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 blah. And then people were in my comments like, you need to unfollow Matt, you can't be associated with him. I'm like, the dude is 17 and he is a Marxist with 160,000 followers. Like, if you're disavowing him and saying he's a piece of crap who just needs to be canceled because he had one wrong take, like, I disagree with that. I think his platform is extremely valuable to the left. And like, and you're not going to.
Are you looking at things systemically or individually? That's the king. Are you looking at things systemically or individually? I mean, and I think the biggest example of this, I wrote about this, and soon, hopefully, in Midwestern Marks, was the Joe Rogan thing. Bernie Sanders appeared on Joe Rogan, obviously massive win for the left. And then Joe Rogan, to top it off, and Ben Burgess said this perfectly, I didn't even think of this, endorsed him, which I said, but even more, endorsed him with no strings attached. So not, I would vote for Bernie, but, or I'll definitely vote for Bernie, but I wish. It was no, I will vote for Bernie. I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders. And now Joe Rogan has said some stuff about trans people it's just gross. Like that any good lefty should say, that's gross. And if one of my friends said that, I would confront them about it, etc.
And by the way, Joe has said it's gross. He's apologized.
Yeah. But and like, these are not good things. So I just want to clarify that before I say this, because I also don't want to get in the position where I'm like, oh, no matter what you look, these are bad things. And when I look at people dialectically, that's not to say, oh, they can change and thus they don't have to apologize because they've changed. It's they do need to apologize, but they can change, and likely they have changed. It's a very big difference. So it's not, if you've said really offensive stuff in your past, and I've been very clear that I have, I'm not saying, oh, I'm exonerated because I've changed. No, I apologize, make amends, and if people still see that stuff, it still affects them. I'm sure I have some YouTube comments up out there that I haven't yet seen, and if I end up getting a big platform, I'm sure they'll come out, and that'll be I don't know where they are, obviously, but it'll be my responsibility to deal with those things. And I don't have a problem with that. And it's important to apologize for those things and grow and change. However, this thing with Joe Rogan, it's like, step away from this individualist attitude, which sometimes is very important. If I am talking to my friend, I do want them to have good opinions and not be like transphobic and not be like, oh, you think people should use whatever bathroom they want? Do you think it's fair if Shaquille O'Neal fought your 13-year-old sister? Like, well, no, I don't think that's fair. Not sure what that has to do with the urinal, but no, I guess that would not be a fair fight. Where are you going with this? Obviously, sure, like we condemn that kind of rhetoric, and yes, that is common rhetoric from people. But like, the systemic implications of Bernie going on a platform, and Joe Rogan is not watched by like coastal elites at a small liberal arts college like mine. He's watched by average people, normal people that actually like make the world go round, who millions, not an exaggeration, literally every clip I see from that show has like 3 million views. It's insane. He's so huge. And when that guy endorses you, that's a win. And by the way, that's not to say ignore it. That's not like, all right, well, Joe Rogan hasn't said transphobic things. You can even say this is a big win for the left, but even that, I'm kind of like, well, is that even equivalent? But go for that. Fine. If that's your thing, fine. But we all know it's a big win. And the idea that anyone would say it's not a big win is so. And let me take this to its logical extreme. Let's say David Duke, who just like out the top of my head is probably the most despicable, like one of the most despicable people I can just sort of think of.
Right.
I'm sure there are more, but that's like a guy who's just like, like if I saw him, I'd probably punch him in the face. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying that, but I would.
KKK leader for those who don't know.
Yeah, he's a KKK leader. He's just about the worst kind of guy. If I think of a guy that sucks, that's the guy I think about. And if he had a podcast as big as Joe Rogan, I mean, God save this country, but let's pretend our country was the same as it is now, yet he had a podcast that big, right? Weird analogy, but stay with me. and he ended up endorsing Bernie 100% with millions and millions of followers, that would still be a win for the left. And this is a despicable person. And I'd expect you to say this is a win for the left, but I'd expect the but, by the way. I would, and I'd like that. But it's still a win. This is the thing that people don't understand, because the systemic implications of a Bernie Sanders presidency would be tremendous for all different kinds of people, including trans people, because he had probably the most progressive platform we've ever seen. And so, yes, Joe Rogan can say these things and millions of people hear them, and they're certainly harmful. But a Bernie Sanders platform versus, say, I don't know, I mean, I don't even have to say, worst case scenario, centrist liberal Joe Biden platform. And we see the implication. I mean, so yeah,
absolutely. I worked for the Bernie campaign, so I'm planning on having my buddy Matt, who plans to run for Congress, who worked for Bernie. My buddy Carlos, who's my co-editor, worked for Bernie, and my buddy Brock, who me and him we basically spent a month together knocking doors, and we became extremely frustrated with the bureaucracy in the campaign. They were constantly making me delete tweets. And of course, months after the Bernie campaign, I blew up on social media, and they were censoring me the whole time. I would tweet something and they're like, don't say this, it's too mean to liberals. And then when Bernie, he had advertised that Joe Rogan endorsed him, and then he rejected the endorsement. It's like that was part of the reason he lost, because people said Joe Rogan endorsed him, and then they saw Bernie reject it, and they're like, oh, he's just one of these liberals who only cares about the culture war. Whereas this is a huge win. This is the biggest podcast in America. And if you listen to Joe Rogan, he's not an outright racist, sexist, or transphobe. Yeah.
Joe Rogan
with Eddie Izzard.
He's just a guy, and if you actually know. And I'd be like, I am the first person to be sheltered. I've been very clear about this. I am not Mr. Worldly. But when you actually remove yourself from being sheltered, this is the kind of guy that most people are like this. And we live in a transphobic country, in an excruciatingly transphobic country. The average person in this country, I would say, is tremendously transphobic. So I don't want to mince words here and say it's not a big deal. It is a big deal.
Yes.
But it's important to know that if you want to make a leftist coalition, there will be transphobes. And the solution is not to say no and just cast them out categorically. And the solution is not to say, oh, whatever you say. Struggle with them. Don't accept that rhetoric. I make the analogy to my family at the dinner table, where sometimes my parents will say something and I'm like, you know what, fine. It's not even worth it. Go for it, And sometimes I'll just be like, no, you can't just say that shit. That shit, come on. And I'm not good at that. I say some shit I shouldn't, and I keep my mouth closed sometimes when I shouldn't. Although my parents would laugh at that second point and say, you never keep your mouth closed.
Same.
But this is how it should be. Sometimes you just, fine, I'm not going to say anything. And other times, if they do say, I'm not comfortable with somebody being this way and using these pronouns, and you say, okay, why? Assume best intentions. And if there aren't best intentions, by all means, kick them out. Look, if someone's in your DSA group and they're just like, I don't like these people and I will never like these people and I will beat up these people, these despicable, nasty, then sure. I'm not saying go up to them with a smile and give them a hug. Certain people, and if it's dangerous for you, I'm also not advocating for you to go to a KKK meeting and with your kippah, your yarmulke on. That's not a good idea. But I think there are levels to this, and this is what's important. And it says something about the left, and I hate to say this because it's very self-victimizing, but I think it's true that I have to clarify any of this, that I have to anticipate when I say be tolerant of racist people. Someone says, you mean neo-Nazis? Because I know someone will say that. It says so much about the left that I have to clarify, no, I don't mean like those people. And I specifically do not want you to bring, neo-Nazi Craig into my leftist meeting with his little patch, because he hates capitalism too. Capitalism with 3 parentheses on either side. It's just no, obviously.
You have to realize the political theater that exists right now is this, as we talked about at the beginning, is this culture war. So it's this idea, don't focus on economics, just focus on this. So you have a huge portion of the country who's just slightly socially conservative. They don't know shit about economics, but they're working class and they vote Republican because of that. And that's Joe Rogan viewers. So it's like, you don't want to talk to those people. You just want to cancel all those people out. Well, then you're never going to build power. You know,
never,
and it's like
never.
Most of these people are not neo-Nazis. Most of these people are just Christians who have some kind of reactionary views about feminism and race. And it's like, if you care about that, engage them, you know, to explain to them why you're correct, basically.
And especially if you're watching this as a white dude, I assume the majority of my audience is white dudes, and certainly white people, because it's a majority American audience, and so, you know, that follows. You know, this is not the job of your, you know, black comrades to go crash the KKK meeting to talk to people, right? This is another thing too, where it's like, we're forming a coalition with the far right. Well, what do you mean?
Right.
Who's doing it? What's the far right? Like, this is a big, you know, again, they hate capitalism with 3 parentheses, so we're the same. No one's advocating for that. But I totally agree with you. And this goes back to the point that I'm making of like, and now everyone in my comments is going to say they're not a white male, and I'm going to feel slightly bad, but slightly good, and mostly confused about why I feel bad or good. But like, this is the thing of like, you know, 80 million people voted for Trump or some shit. Those people don't like think they're racist. Like, some people do. But like, how many people do you think walked to the ballot box and was like, I'm racist? Like, this is a big win for white people. That's not to say I don't think Trump is racist. That's not to say that. But if someone says I'm not racist and you say, oh, yes, you are, like, where are you going to go with that?
Right.
I certainly wouldn't listen to you, especially if I was like 50 years old and like had a job and kids. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, I just voted in the election. Like, you want me to die in some revolution? Like, suck my dick. Like, I mean, and you don't blame anyone for thinking like that, because the attitude of people is so aloof and disconnected. And this is the new article. Sorry, someone's calling me. It's my sister, which is wonderful. I love her to pieces, but also it means she's not watching this, which is disappointing. But you know, whatever. If she had a stream, I'd watch it. No, but it's like, I'm writing about this, so I don't want to spoil too much, but I'm talking about this politics of hate versus love, which is basically, if the quote-unquote elites disappeared today, would you still be a socialist? Do you actually care about working people? Do you care about their culture? And the basic sort of analogy or point that I made was like, if you can't like walk into a bar and just say who was in the World Series last year, and that's not to say you have to get like, you know, pissed drunk with the guys until 3 a.m. watching all 9 innings of all games, you know, to have a legitimate opinion on baseball. But it's like basic colloquial knowledge, you know, or you have enough knowledge to be like, oh, I know who was playing, or I have a vague idea, but, you know, I'm not really into sports. That's a fine opinion. No one kicks you out of anywhere for saying that. But it's the sort of ridiculous like hatred of culture that I'm really critiquing, where it's like, don't watch the Super Bowl. Like, that's propaganda. Like, anyway, like, did you hear what happened at the Grammys? And it's like, those are like, it's never like 2 different kinds of people, by the way. It's like, sorry, like, I'm still recovering from the Grammys. Well, it's been 2 weeks, so. But it's like, no, like, the Super Bowl is mindless cultural propaganda. Someone said, if racists don't know they're racist, how will they ever change? Well, I'm not saying that you can't ever call a racist. I'm saying that can't be the crux of your argument.
Right.
You know, so it's
right.
not, and
what people, well, like you were saying, when most people go to the ballot box and vote for Trump, they're not thinking I'm racist. There is that section of his voters, you know, that are just like David Duke types, where it's like, fuck them, you know, we don't need to appeal to them. But a lot of people are just voting for Trump because they think he's anti-PC, or you know, maybe economic reasons. They thought they were going to bring his jobs back, or bring their jobs back, and those are people who can be reached, you know, and the idea is that maybe they have reactionary views, maybe they have racist views, but through engaging with them, you can bring them away from that.
Right.
But if you just cancel them, they're just going to go hang out with other racists.
Yeah, and that's the big point. I'm not saying don't call them racist. Like, if someone's being racist, you have every right to be like, that's racist. But that's not the argument. And remember, that's racist is different than you're racist. And not just in the subtly linguistically different way, but you have to approach things like that, okay? Hey, that person said a thing that's racist. Fine. That person is racist. No one is inherently racist. If you believe that, then you believe that race is real and innate. I don't. I don't buy that. I'm not a race realist. Hands on the table, I must confess. And so obviously racism. It cannot, physically be innate. However, we can say that it is systemically, like, deeply ingrained in all these things. I'm not saying it's like this surface level thing we can disregard. I am saying we have the ability to get over it. How do we get over it? By interrogating it. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of listening. I am by no means exempt. No white person is. I'm not saying any of those things. But it's not innate. So when you engage with somebody off of the assumption that they are a racist and that's who they are, you will never get anywhere. Because you're operating off of a false assumption, and two, they're never going to agree with you. Because I wouldn't want to agree with somebody. A lot of these people would say, Ben Shapiro is a primary example of someone who says, oh, if somebody's racist, I'll condemn them. Racism is evil. Racism is bad. I genuinely don't think he believes he's racist. Now, because his platform is so big and because he's so wealthy, I don't have any interest in giving Ben Shapiro the benefit of the doubt, because I think of him more as systemic than a single individual. Right. But the same principle applies. Like, I genuinely believe this. I know this sounds ridiculous. In my heart of hearts, I don't think Ben Shapiro thinks that he's a racist. I think he is a racist. But I don't think he thinks he's racist, because when these people think of racism, they literally think of, like, someone who actually is on the street with, like, a sign that's like, God hates X, Y, and Z people. Right. Like, they think, like, because they will say to me, for example, prove Trump is racist. It's like, what do you mean prove Trump is racist? Like, he's a fucking racist. Like, I just know that. Like, if you know racist people, you, like, just know how he acts, and it's like, he's racist. Like, I don't. What do you mean prove it? And they're like, oh, like, give me an example of him, like, saying, like, he hates black people. And I'm like what? Like they want, like, these, like, specific, like, Trump raising his hand, like, by the way, I'm a racist. And it's like, and that's what the distinction I made. Sorry, Sweaty G, maybe I wasn't clear. Anytime I say that's racist, they have the same reaction to if I said you're racist. My point was that it wasn't the linguistic difference. That's racist and you're racist does have the same effect. I more meant in the way that you approach it personally. Remember that this person is saying a lot of racist things. Okay. Yeah. Nothing about them is inherently racist, because there's no such thing as race. It's a human construct. This is the key point. And then I'll let Eddie talk, because I've been rambling for like 90 fucking minutes. You cannot be inherently racist unless race is a legitimate biological concept. And it's not a legitimate biological concept. There is no legitimate form of racism, because for that to be the case, race as a concept would have to be sort of encoded in us genetically. And for that to be the case, race would have to be a thing that is more than, skin deep, as the saying goes. And it's not. That's why no one can be racist as such. So it's not that saying that's racist versus you're racist has a different effect. It's that you need to approach things as if someone said something racist, as opposed to they are inherently racist.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. I was saying, there's extremes to this. Again, neo-Nazis and KKK members, fuck it. Like, you don't need to appeal to every single human person.
Right.
And again, if you are not safe in these scenarios, just want to clarify once again, so don't get taken out of context. Don't roll up to some people are not your friends, and that's fine. Yes. Anyway, sorry, continue. Just have to give these disclaimers.
No, yeah, totally. I agree with all of what you're saying. And, like, DSA 100% educates people on anti-racism, right? And I had a group called the Labor Club at my college with this kid, and we would educate people on anti-racism, on the history of racism in America and how it is deeply tied to capitalism and our economic system. But my friend also says, and he now is in a union on the railroad as an avowed communist trying to organize these people in the most important sectors of the American economy, that he would never bring his dad as a self-avowed socialist, but he would never bring his dad to a DSA meeting because it's just anti-culture of the workers, like you were saying. And that doesn't mean we want a bunch of Nazis and KKK members to come to the DSA meeting. What we mean is maybe people come with socially conservative views and then they're educated on the history of America, on the history of anti-racism. But you can't have this organization that just, disavows working culture and tells you if you watch the Super Bowl, you're racist, to use the example you were using. We need to bring these people in and then educate them about anti-racism, because we do look at things dialectically. We don't look at people as being inherently racist. We look at them as maybe having those views and they can change. And like you said, some people are just like Ben Shapiro, where they're being paid millions of dollars to be racist. Not saying waste your time with them, but with the American working class, you know, a lot of people are going to have views you don't agree with. And those views can be disproven by talking about the history of America and by talking about, you know, by explaining that racism isn't real. You know, race isn't even real. It's a social construct.
Yeah,
but you're not even going to get people to that point if you're just canceling them. Basically, it comes back to kind of like cancel culture. And like on the left, we do have to reject that. Like, I know cancel culture is kind of ridiculous. You know, people don't really get canceled, but they do. Like, well, someone will say something that we disagree with, and then we'll say, F you, you're canceled. And then they go into these far right circles, kind of like what's happening with Glenn Greenwald now, actually. He got canceled from the left. You know, The Intercept wrote this article like, F you, Glenn Greenwald, we don't care about you. You're a Republican. And now he's kind of, you know, he's going on the Daily Caller and saying these ridiculous things. Maybe that's not the best example. But,
no, like, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, because it's not, you know, we are using celebrities because we sort of all, not celebrities, but, you know, we're using famous, notable people because we can all, like, see how it's going. But, you know, take this down to the microcosm of normal people doing normal things, because it is sort of the same principle, because, you know, rich people, again, are not inherently, like, inhuman. I actually don't even think anyone thinks that. I mean, obviously they are representations of human beings, so they do function in the same way. So yeah, I mean, it's the same principle. But I also agree with you in this whole idea of, like, one of the things with cancel culture too is a lot of people who get, like, canceled are, like, just shitty people. It almost reminds me of the whole cultural appropriation thing, which is more nuanced nowadays. And I don't want to get into what it is nowadays, because nowadays there's a ton of writing on it, and we can get into the details, and there actually is a ton of shit. But I'm talking about the early days where, like, somebody would be like, I don't know if anyone even remembers this, but I was on, like, Culture Wars YouTube in, like, you know, 2015 as, like, a, you know, recovering conservative, probably. And I was like, you know, like a liberal, basically. So, you know, someone would be, like, listening to reggae music, and they would just be like, you know, that's cultural appropriation. Basic stuff, like, obviously it's not. And a lot of the stuff that was cultural appropriation would be, like, someone in blackface, and it was like, well, sure, but also, like, it's just, like, racist and terrible and evil. It almost reminds me a lot of this cancel culture stuff, where a lot of these people who are getting quote unquote canceled, that they've said things in the past that are, like, evil, and just like, oh my God, you know, because there's a difference between, like, oh, like, there's a video of me, like, lip syncing to a song at age 11, and I accidentally said the N-word, which, you know, it's not, like, a good thing, and, like, you know, good for you. Obviously there's stuff there. And, like, I'm trying to think of, like, someone. Only JS, that's probably even an example. I know it was, like, 5 years ago and she was 17, but the stuff that she was saying, I mean, that was pretty despicable, frankly. Right. And it was like, there is obviously a difference. Yeah. Even if it was 5 years ago, I just, like, that was pretty bad. Right. It's also, like, you know, could I justify this to somebody, like, genuinely? And that's how I like to approach a lot of these issues.
Well, yeah, Angela Nagel, she wrote a book about how sometimes, like, the left identity politics goes way too far, and she's been canceled from the left. You know, Angela Nagel. Yeah. I don't know if y'all have heard of her, but she's, like, basically been ostracized from the left for even bringing up these ideas. You know,
and they called her culturally conservative. They called her culturally conservative.
She's not. Read her books. Read her books.
That was the thing. It was just like. It was interesting to me because it was this video from Zero Books. I'm sort of late to the game. I would have probably, again, I didn't, like, know ideology. I didn't read about politics. I had no idea what the fuck theory was. So I'm saying retrospectively, I was a, like, Warren Bernie-crat for, like, you know, 3 years. And then the last probably year and a half, I've been, you know, socialist communist type guy. So when I was on that side, I think Kill All Normies was released in 2017, 2018. So I wasn't fully within the left. And it was like, but apparently there was a ton of backlash. And I watched this Zero Books video because I'm, you know, trying to catch up on the drama I missed when I was, like, a Bernie-crat. And it was like, is there culturally conservative leftism? It was a good video, by the way. But they used sort of Angela Nagel as a starting off point just because of her immigration takes, which were interesting. But, you know, I guess quote unquote conservative in the current paradigm. Right. But I kind of looked into her and I was like, oh my God, this is not a culturally conservative. Yeah, someone said gatekeeping is probably a better term than canceling. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. So a lot of this stuff is totally gatekeeping. And I'm more talking about the beginning of the movement. People didn't know what it was. And, hopefully cancel culture does get to that point where Andrew Cuomo, cancel him. Go for it, please.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. Cancel him.
Yeah, cancel him.
Not Angela.
Yeah, take away his platform, and if he apologizes, he apologizes, and I will, it's not my place to forgive him. But, he's not the governor anymore. And that's another thing, too, by the way. I look at people dialectically, I do. But if you are the head of my party and you, for example, harass somebody sexually, you are no longer the head of the party, And I believe in your capacity to change and better yourself, et cetera, et cetera. But, I'm not going to be like, well, Hegel says people can change. Like he does, but you are also not going to tell me what to do. So there are levels to this, but I totally agree. Gatekeeping is a better word. Yeah, the canceling thing has just become ubiquitous because that's the thing with people would only JS is canceled, and then I get DMs where it's you're canceled, and it's just okay, well, this term is too broad. Not to say I've never done anything wrong, but if those two things are, I can assure you, and I've said some bad shit in messages. I'll be totally honest, and I'm sure if I ever get really famous, they'll get uncovered and I'll have to talk about it. But I've never said anything that bad. I can assure you of that. Right. So the fact that those two words, are being used, that same word is being used for these two people, that's indicative. It almost reminds, but and it's not anyone's fault. It almost reminded me of sort of very, very early on in the Me Too movement, really early. This is not I think the Me Too movement was a very good movement because it was very much women led and they directed it, and it was such a long time coming that it very quickly became if you disagree with the Me Too movement, you're probably a shitty person. That's all I'll say. I mean, a lot of men are whoa, what happened to
old-fashioned? Have sexually assaulted people in the past.
Yeah.
If you disagree
what happened to old-fashioned flirting? Yeah, it's what do you mean old-fashioned flirting? Elaborate on that one, please. But very early on, again, I want to reiterate, it was Aziz Ansari. He was being weird with some girl. I'm not excusing it, but it was
I remember this.
Yeah, it's Aziz Ansari got Me Too'd. And also Bill Cosby got Me Too'd. And it was at that moment you're kind of well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? There's a difference.
The same thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I feel that's not anyone's issue, again, because look at things as systemic, not linguistic. I mean, that's a language issue, more than it is anyone fucked up. But it is indicative that we sort of use these terms. We could have glom onto them. Yes. And got Me Too'd. Obviously, Bill Cosby is. I mean, you don't have to get into what he did, but it's
as a point of strategy, the right can pick that up when you make the term so broad.
Right. Well, and then they can say, "Oh, Me Too."
Ansari, this is bullshit. Everyone come to the right. It's no, we wanted to cancel Harvey Weinstein,
and that's the thing, and
Epstein,
and that's the amazing point, because when I say, "Oh, what happened to Me Too," and I reflect backwards, I think of Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and all these despicable and Me Too culture, by the way, is still happening. It doesn't have the name, but I solidarity with these women that have stood up against Andrew Cuomo, who's an immensely powerful guy, and these
Joe
people
Biden.
That stood up. Yeah, Joe Biden, for God's sake. I mean, these are people that stood up to him when he was, big deal. And you see how hard it was for people to stand up to these people even 30 years later, given how much power they had. And everyone's 30 years, statute of limitations. Well, hell, they got silenced. I mean, because how did Bill Cosby even get exposed? It was Hannibal Buress in 2011 did a skit where he was talking about Bill Cosby did X, Y, and Z, and everyone in the audience was super incredulous, what, Bill Cosby's a rapist? Hannibal Buress literally said you can look this up. This is public knowledge, and it was at that point, which is almost weird. The point when Hannibal Buress said this knowledge is public was the point that it became public. It's sort of weird. And also Hannibal Buress's career popped off after that, and that's amazing because he's the best.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's so funny. But it's that's the sort of thing where obviously, but it's was I getting it right? And when I think of Me Too, I think of Cosby and Weinstein and these and Louis C.K. and these people are just gross and despicable, and you kind of read them and you're this is just despicable. But the right is very much able to say, "Oh, Aziz Ansari, read the article. It was just awkwardness, and oh, haven't we all been here?" And a little skeptical on to haven't we all been here, but right. They go off. But that's how they do it. And I never, and I want to clarify this. I never, ever want to quantify or contextualize our politics in relation to the right, because that is how we get the weak left we have right now. Oh no, the right's radicalizing so many people. Oh, let's radicalize a bunch of people. Let's get them scared. Let's get a creator with 1 million followers to become a communist. I'm tired of being so scared that this creator with 1 million followers is a fascist. I'm not unscared. I didn't like when Kai joined the Republican hype house. I wasn't like, yeah, good, more paleo conservatives in the mainstream. But let's get the same amount of, let's go for it, more action. However, we also have to realize what the right is doing, because they aren't irrelevant. There's a difference there. We don't have to just react to them. We don't exist in response to them. But we do have to acknowledge that they exist. I keep ranting, but it's the Friday night stream, so.
Yeah, it is. No, you're right. Yeah, you have to understand what they are. Like, you want to understand your enemy. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I watched Joe Rogan because I know the majority of people around me are watching Joe Rogan. It's not because I agree with his take on trans people. It's because I want to know what people are being fed so I can counter it. And people don't look at it that way. I mean, it's like, in a way, it's a competition. Like, I wish the left was run like a wrestling team. Like, we know we're correct. So how are we going to implement these correct ideas against bad faith actors who are just trying to, who don't think poor people deserve to have health care or whatever? So, yeah, I don't know.
But this is the point too, and I totally agree with you. And this applies to, by the way, sports, which is important. No one's saying watch every game from every season, just like no one's saying watch every episode from every Joe Rogan show. Just know what's going on. What the issue with individualism is on the left is that we have sort of, because conformity became such a tactic for bullying, and it really did. I mean, I can say this from, I've been bullied, not immensely. I had a fine high school career. I was just sort of seen as weird but acceptable. But I have been certainly teased in ways that probably people didn't know affected me deeply for being a little weird. I mean, I used to carry around a little book called Biology of Primates. And I probably carried it around for a number of years. And that was kind of my thing. I just love primates. Fine, not a big deal, right? And no one should be bullied out of carrying that book around, is my point. But I think because a lot of people on the left were bullied for the sake of conformity, or were sort of targeted or on the outside of, or had the negative impact of, et cetera, conformity, there seems to be this misunderstanding and gut reaction to what conformity is. Nobody is saying you have to be anything, but I am saying, and I'm pretty adamant about this, again, you need to know what the hell's going on with people. So don't watch every second of every game of every NFL season. Don't watch every second of every Joe Rogan podcast. In the same way, by the way, that you can say, I don't like the porn industry and not watch porn. But if you don't know what porn is, you really can't say you don't support the porn industry. By the way, I'm not saying, go do research and watch 10 hours of porn. We all know, but you all see my point. You have to sort of get what the hell is going on so you can talk about it. If you've never had a job before, it's hard to talk about the workplace, for example. So, and this thing. So again, like, don't go do fucking research on porn, because we've all, but it is the kind of, you have to know what it is to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I come from the situation of where I've never, this is going to sound terrible, I've never been like a social outcast, right? In high school, I was popular. In college, I've been popular, and like, just had a lot of friends. I don't know. It just is what it is.
It's not a bad thing. I've seen people get mad at you for that. I don't even know to your face, but like, people are like, oh, like Eddie isn't a good look for the left. And only one person said this. I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, like he's so accessible. Like, and I was like,
right? How is that bad?
I've read your comments. You get stuff like this. Yeah.
Viewers think, and I'm gonna pitch to them the same exact ideals that you're pitching, which is not a bad thing,
Yeah. Pee pee poo poo check. Just letting everyone know. Make sure everyone likes the video. No, I totally agree. I mean, there is this rebellion against conformity on the left because we've all had sort of negative experiences. But it's like, again, I'm not a democratic socialist as such, like in the Bernstein sense.
Right.
But I do believe in a democratic socialism in the sense that, like, I want people to agree. Like, I'm sure, you know what I mean? Like if like me and 10 people all like got armed with like 100 nukes like at various points in the country and like held up the U.S. government and was like communism now, like that'd be terrible. That would be you know what I mean? Like that's just evil. That'd be totalitarian. No one would want it, et cetera, et cetera. So we all want it to be democratic in the basic sense of like people agree. And if that's the case, you're not just going to have this weird group of feeder kids. You know, I hate to say it. You're going to have to talk to some people who played sports in high school. And these are like people. And I'm definitely the middle ground. I am the kid that was like, I'm fine. Like I was never popular. I was never unpopular. But it's like, this is the idea of like you need to have sort of this level of like oddity on the left or else people don't take you seriously. It's bizarre.
Yeah, and it's almost like an overreaction to the...
But it's bullying. But it is bullying. Frankly, it is bullying. And you can't say that, and I'm going to speak for you only because I'm slightly higher up on the weird chain than you are, even though like you are a communist.
I enjoy it.
You can't overstate how normal you are. You're still a communist. Right. But I'll speak for you because I was certainly the weird kid in high school. But it is bullying. Like it's not like, and I'm not saying, oh, it's so hard because someone's white and popular. It's just bullying in the general sense of people being mean for no reason. And people aren't going to be comfortable with that. If you make fun of somebody literally for working out, it's not like, oh, I'm like saying, oh, people with good body types are oppressed. No, but if you make fun of someone for working out, they're not going to be on your side. I wouldn't. If someone constantly made fun of my body type or made fun of the way I conduct myself socially or made fun of how I talk or how I act, I'd be like, all right, fuck you. Like, I'll just do my own thing. It's just not worth it. You know, I am a collectivist. I do believe in collectivism. But if people on the left treated me like dog shit, like, frankly, I do have my own life. You know, we're not a fucking hive mind as a species. We are still individuals. Everyone acknowledges that. And if people just bullied me, I'm taking this to its extreme. I understand that. But if people just bullied me, I'd just be like, all right, fuck you. Like, I have a life.
Yeah, you know, I think I can speak to this. It's like I got most of my wrestling team to vote for Bernie because I knew how to interact with them. And I see the rejection of me from people on the left, you know, like Eddie's culturally, he's a jock. He's a cis-het, white, sports playing person who's a communist. And therefore, that's bad. And it's like, okay, I don't mind, you know, I don't give a fuck, you know, whatever. And then like the criticisms of me being fat phobic and stuff, if I think you're correct, you know, in your criticisms of me, I'll say, oh, you know, very good criticism. Here's my response. I've amended my positions. But I understand that all the people I got to vote for Bernie, if they didn't have me, if they were just talking to the normal left, they would be like, oh shit, these people hate me. Right? They hate people who play sports. They hate people who enjoy anything that's popular. And that's not the way to build a mass movement. But people aren't that concerned with building a mass movement, right?
They're not.
A lot of people are concerned with being like, as I was saying at the beginning, this is my ideology and this is the most correct.
They're reactors. They want to be right. They don't care about goals.
Right. They don't give a shit about
if Bernie Sanders was X, Y, and Z, but he ran like, I don't know, Medicare for all plus, like give me a big thing that would like negate him being like, I don't know, like really reactionary on like two issues, nationalizing energy, and he was almost going to win the election. I'd still support him, and I'd say I support him, but I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to be like, oh, that's the best we can get. Look, if you're transphobic, like I'm not going to be accepting. Like
and what's funny is so many
and it's just like don't.
Biden. And it's like,
right.
you know,
but nobody settled for Bernie. But like, nobody on the left settled for Bernie.
Well, Biden's been accused of sexual assault, and he gave Strom Thurmond's funeral.
Right. And what does he have going for him?
Republican, the liberals would be calling to cancel him, right?
But also, like, what does he have going for him?
You gotta vote for him.
But I so agree, and it's like, and Biden doesn't have anything going for him.
Right. Nothing.
Like,
right.
Bernie
qualities.
If Bernie acted like Trump, I'd still vote for Bernie. And again, I'd say I'm going to vote for Bernie, but But and if you acted like Trump, I mean, that's such a logical extreme that obviously would never work on the left. But take me to my fantasy world, it'd be a hell of a lot of buts because I do have some issues with Trump. Fun fact. But it's like there are these material issues, and I also talk about this. The great Michael Brooks, who you all need to go to the archive, every video Michael Brooks is ever in, and I'm working through that and just watch. Michael Brooks is just hard to express how incredible he is. I don't want to lionize him. I was talking to Ben Burgess, and I was talking about his legacy, and Professor Burgess was definitely like, he wasn't upset at me, but I think he was upset that we have sort of canonized him as like Saint Michael. And I imagine that is hard because he knew him personally and we didn't. So it's probably hard for him to see him as like this, because his sort of Michael Brooks's legacy sort of is now out of everyone else's control. It's now in our hands. So it's important, and I want to reiterate this. I've never even encountered this situation because I've never had anyone famous die that I gave a shit about, frankly, in my lifetime. And this is a person I do give a shit about. To remember that like he does have people in his life that knew him personally. So it is important to understand that. And his relationship with me, I mean, I do feel like he's my friend in the basic way of like I used to watch him every day. You know what I mean? And it was a very parasocial sort of thing of like, if Michael Brooks sat down with me, I would be able to ask him 3 million straight questions about everything. And obviously he wouldn't be able to ask me a single question because he doesn't know who I am. And that's a mark of like a good podcaster and a good host. I'm sure, millions of people have that with Joe Rogan, et cetera, et cetera. But he talked about, Ben talked about in reference to Michael. Sorry, what were we talking about again? What was I going on?
Michael Brooks and how Ben thinks he's been canonized by the left.
Yeah, but I was talking about like right. In terms of his internationalism, Michael Brooks was incredibly focused on internationalism.
Incredibly.
And so much about this world. And he really opened my eyes to scale. And what do I mean by scale? I mean, for example, if a libertarian candidate ran in this country, and I will explain what I'm saying before Eddie yells at me, and he actually made legitimate progress. This is a libertarian, not like a Joe Jorgensen libertarian, but a Rand Paul libertarian. There's a big difference. I would vote for him. I would vote for him if he actually had a chance of winning. And the reason I'd vote for him, and I wouldn't vote for him if I lived in the Maldives or a Fiji or one of these, or Mauritania or a smaller country, is because this candidate, I truly believe Rand Paul would not declare war on anyone. Like, I truly believe he simply wouldn't. I think he is this. And what I mean by scale is that if I live in America, that's big. If you live in Maldives and you elect a libertarian, they're probably focused on like privatizing breast milk. And you certainly don't want to vote for that libertarian. Now, a lot of these libertarians in America would love to privatize breast milk, but the beauty of America is we do have a robust public sector. The issue is that our robust public sector is very internationalist, and it's all military, and there's nothing else. I know I hit Eddie on the ropes when I said robust public sector. It's all military. There's nothing else. There's no underground thing. It's just our massive, gigantic, huge, oversized military budget. And anyone who lowers that by levels that you can call it slashing. I mean, if someone said slash the military budget, that's like if a hot girl whispers in my ear, like, I love Karl Marx too. That's just like it's just music. Slash the military budget. That's music to my ears. Hair standing on end, big smile on my face. I mean, sort of being like a fucking white nationalist. Just go for it. I'll vote for you. And it's like there's level of scale. And when listening to Michael Brooks, maybe Michael Brooks would counter me on this, but it's like I'd probably vote for a libertarian in the U.S. if he was actually going to win or had a chance of winning, by the way. And now that's not the exact point. I'm not trying to take words out of his mouth, but it's his international perspective of what we do in America. It's not about Americans. It's about any other country in the world that we could invade at moment's notice. Remember, we invaded Grenada, for God's sakes. 99% of Americans couldn't point to Grenada on the map. I want to flex. I was almost a candidate for the state final in the GOB, hosted by National Geographic, which is the International Geography Student Trivia Challenge. I couldn't point to Grenada on a map I could then, because I studied the math. I couldn't now, and I still can tell you the capital of every country. I can tell you the largest city in every country and the highest mountain and the population, et cetera, but I can't tell you where the fuck Grenada is in the map.
Right.
And yet the United States overthrew a military coup overthrew there. They go wherever they want.
Killed tons of people.
Tons of people.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by scale. And that's what we have to remember with Michael Brooks, that we live in the imperial core. And that's not something that we just say and forget about. It impacts every aspect of our life.
Yeah, and that's, when I started doing TikTok was around when Michael Brooks died. And it was a combination of things in my personal life where, like, Bernie had lost, Nationals for me had just gotten canceled as a wrestler. And then Michael Brooks died, and I was like, I need to carry on this legacy somehow. And that's when I started posting.
I'm in the same place.
The
sure.
minute part of it is like, for me, Michael Brooks helped my transition into socialism because of his global perspective, right? He's like, even if, like, I was a social democrat, but he's like, even if we get social democracy implemented, imperialism is still going to be a thing. And then after looking at the world globally, I started to move towards socialism, and that's been my exact same approach as a content creator. And one of that buddy I was talking about, who's in the railroad union, he'll sometimes just be like, why do you talk about Venezuela so much? What U.S. workers care about Venezuela? But it's like, if you help people see a vision of the world as not just straightforward as, a global thing, the economy is global, you can bring people towards socialism, because that's when it becomes undeniable, right? When you see U.S. imperialism and when you see Western imperialism and what private property has done to the entire global South, you start to realize, oh, this is a horrendous system based on exploitation. Yeah. We need to move to a system of global socialism.
Global. Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what Michael Brooks offered. And he's the man.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to leave you to chat for a couple seconds. I got to use the restroom.
Shoot, I do too. I'm going when you get back.
All right. You have to go, like, really badly? I don't have to go that badly. I could hold it.
You go first. I'll go next.
All right. Occupy the people. Occupy the masses.
What's going on, everyone? What should we talk about? I'm going to pull up the chat here. I'm going to pull up the chat on youtube.com. What have we been talking about? We've been talking about global socialism. Yeah, when you look at the earth, as an economic system, which it is, economics are just how humans interact with nature, right? So you have nature, you have humans. How do we use our labor to interact with nature to create civilization? All the commodities we see around us, all the use values we see around us. And when you look at it from a global perspective and you see the fact that the U.S. has been extracting wealth from the global South, it becomes hard to advocate for, like, liberalism or social democracy, right? Because even the gains for workers that we make here in North America are coming at the expense of those in the global South, which is what I feel like Michael Brooks offered, and that's why Michael Brooks was the man. Pol Pot would have killed you for being so perfect. That's the only reason I don't support Pol Pot, is I feel like he would have killed me specifically. Otherwise, he's great. Just kidding. If you're a socialist and you support Pol Pot, you need to stop. And maybe check out the article about Pol Pot that I just recently published on my website. Eddie Takeover. Woo! We're running this. I am the new head of KosherWhiteWine's YouTube channel. People are weirdly afraid of getting metooed. Pee-pee poo-poo check. Gatekeeping. Oh, sorry. I'm already back. You guys need to leave more comments. What do you want to know? What do you want to hear? What's your opinion on the Khmer Rouge? The Khmer Rouge were nationalists, essentially. So they admitted they were saying, or Pol Pot and his advisor said, we don't understand Marx. We don't get Marx. We're not trying to apply Marxism. they just used the name of communism to essentially do nationalism. So the Khmer were like were really hostile with the other ethnic groups in the region at the time, and then when they rose to power, they just started like killing people, and that's bad. That's not what communists want.
Killing people is bad. What was that? Oh, it was opinion on the Khmer Rouge.
Yes, killing people.
Yeah,
not good.
Yeah,
I gotta
killing. Okay, we got some questions. Opinion on the Khmer Rouge, yeah, murderous, evil, bad people. Did I figure out how to say Muslim? I say Muslim sometimes because I'm white, but I know it's Muslim, right? Is that right? Fascist. How would the police work under communism? The entire concept of the police would be different. I'd say like, they wouldn't exist because as an institution as they are right now, they wouldn't exist, but it's like a semi-reductive analysis. But like, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't exist. So, yeah, if anyone has any more questions, let me know. Oh, there's some drama. Eddie, is kosher red wine?
I'm back.
Gorgeous.
We get any good viewer questions?
No, someone just said, how would the police work under communism? And I basically said, like, it's so different that I'd say they just wouldn't exist. But, it's sort of a reductive take because obviously there would be some level of order and but it wouldn't be police.
To help people, to fill people's tires up when they run out of gas or when they run out of air to help. I mean, there's an idea in Facing the Anthropocene, which is a good eco-socialist text. Like, the military, wars are useless. They're for capitalist expansion. The whole military should be transformed into climate corps, that help clean up climate catastrophes. Like, that'd be a good function for, like the military, like these branches of the state that right now are based on violence and oppression could be used for cleanup, climate crisis, helping people, anything other than shooting people.
Yeah. I don't really, I didn't really know how to answer the question because it's like, I don't know. It's like someone like, how would like money exist under communism? Like it wouldn't, but like there would be like quote unquote replacements because we wouldn't just like go from nothing to something. Anyway, if you are still watching, remember to like the video. It's important. There's a great Instagram account called the college that I'm at .confessions. There's this weird ass sicko 30-year-old guy who's a student at our school. He's like 38 and he leaves like comments on everyone, including like young women's posts. It's just gross.
Wait, what is this? It's a guy?
Yeah, his account that I follow, it's like the college that I go to, like Confessions, and he like comments on every post, and it's just gross. Like there's like people that are like, oh, like, you know, WLW, like relationships. So like, you know, women love women, I guess, or like, you know, like lesbian people who are like, oh, there's just not other people like me here. And then it's like guys like, oh, like, you know, I'd be fine to join in a threesome, and everyone's like what? Like what? Like, man, like this is like supposed to be a fun thing, or it's like a confession, so it's like anonymous. You all post your like, you know, anonymous, like, you know, weird thing that you do. And it's like dumb shit. You know, when I go to the dining hall, I always take 2 of this, or I always, you know, this guy who serves food at the dining hall is really hot, or I've had sex in the X room. This one guy, like on every post, is like, oh, like that could be us, or like that's my bae, or like let me join in. And everyone's just like, he's like a 38-year-old too, because we have this thing for like military vets here, and like the most are really cool, but obviously he's just not. And he's the same guy who has this weird ass Tinder bio. It's like one truth and a lie. Like, I'm hot and my cock is small, and it's like that's a weird thing. I'm not gonna talk to you. And like, you know, my taste in men is very specific, but it's definitely not that. I'll just be no, just my friend showed it to me. I'm not gay, I promise. No, I am. What? Someone said, what is your opinion on being super straight? Is that like a meme, like super capitalism? Like super straight. Is it did I miss like TikTok drama? What did I miss? Is that the same thing as like when Vosh was like, oh, we should say super capitalism instead of capitalism, and now they're like these like 3 brain-celled individuals are like, well, I'm not a communist, I'm a super capitalist. It's, you know, Vosh says that it's not going to work. Like, I've never met somebody who's like, I'm the head of the rail workers union and I watch Vosh. Like, I just can't imagine anyone being like, you know, I work 11 hours a day at the factory. I get home, take my shoes off, kick my feet up, have a beer, and I log on to YouTube to see what 4-hour debate Vosh posted with a race realist. It's just like, it's never like, I mean, because like all of his debates are like, do you have any sources that Jews control the media? And the Nazis like, no, but I know they do. And he's like, oh, you're an idiot. It's like, oh, well, 3 minutes in and the Nazi's an idiot. Wow.
Right. Who'd have guessed?
Yeah, who could have thunk it?
Thank you for platforming them, Vosh, so you could.
Yeah, and it's like, that's the idea. I mean, I was talking to Ben Burgess about platforming, and he's great with it because, like, I mean, you know, he's obviously gotten in trouble for platforming like the most ridiculous way. Like that time he debated Stefan Molyneux, and he was like, I have like 600. At that point, he had like, you know, because he was like known for going on like MBS and all that stuff. He had like, you know, he just started his YouTube channel. He had a couple of videos and 0 books. But he was like, you know, he got to Stefan Molyneux's YouTube channel when he still had YouTube, which had like 500,000 subscribers or something. And everyone was like, you're platforming him. He was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, holy shit. I'm not like you. What is platforming? I mean, I had someone say I was on a Zoom with Lance Videos, and someone said stop platforming him, and I was like 74. Like Lance Videos is an idiot and a racist, and a sexist, and a homophobe, and a transphobe, and a xenophobe, et cetera, et cetera. I fully acknowledge that. And if he was my brother, I'd be like, this kid is a nasty piece of shit, and I will change his fucking mind. But Lance Videos is not far right. Like Lance Videos represents the majority of the country. And everyone's like, oh, well, the majority of the country is far right. Like, well, fine, then it's not far right. Like far is in reference to the normal. And I do agree that things are going more far right economically. Socially, I think they're about centered in certain issues. They're going left in certain issues and going right in certain issues. That's not the point. But like, I'm not going to platform a Republican. Like, it's not platforming. He's a fucking Republican. I will talk to any Republican about anything on any platform. You know, and
Lance specifically is so dumb. Like if I could have Lance on my podcast, I would jump on it because I know.
Go for it. No, would you
talk to him, you know, and make him seem silly because I know he doesn't know anything. He's just like
you should get more people. Oh, someone said it means you're straight, but don't date trans women. I'll be honest. I've consulted with the homies, and that just means you're a dickhead. The homies say you're a dickhead if you're quote unquote straight, but you don't date trans women. I think it's weird to make that distinction.
That is weird. If they're hot, they're hot. You know, yeah. Like what do you mean you won't date trans?
Can I be honest with you? I think that dude bro culture is almost making a comeback in response to transphobia, and I'm all for it. Like, there are transphobes who are like, no, they're trans, and I'm like they're hot. Like, shut up.
Right.
Like revive dude bro culture. If only to destroy the fucking transphobes. Like, yeah, you can't think they're hot. Like, they had surgery. Like, oh no. Like, well, they're hot. So
Too bad.
Yeah.
That's
so no, I'm not super straight. If somebody was trans and I fell in love with them, I would fall in love with them. But I would never fall in love with anyone because that's a betrayal to the my true love, which is. All right, see, if you comment shit like "punch me, daddy," I just don't know who you're referring to. No, I'm kidding. It's just a lot. No, revive dude bro culture to destroy transphobes. Wait, you got a question, Eddie? Did Lance ever agree to fight you?
No. So now at this point, I've challenged Benjamin Politics and Lance Videos to fight, and Nick Videos. So Lance Videos said I need to challenge him in swimming. Swimming before I fight him. Nick Videos.
Wait.
That was his legit response.
He challenged you to a swim race.
He said, "You need to beat me in swimming, and then I'll fight you."
That reminds me of the great proletarian revolution of China when Chiang Kai-shek challenged Mao to a swim race and he won, and that's why Mao won. So true.
Exact same thing.
He challenged you to a swim race.
I swear to God, that's what he said. And what's funny is my girlfriend's a swimmer, so I was like, "We'll swim against you, and then I'll fight you." I'm like, "My girlfriend will beat your ass at swimming, and then I'll beat your ass legitimately."
I don't know why it's so funny to me. I just can imagine the last bastion of the reactionary Americans. We will beat the communists in swimming. Yo, swim with me. Square up, bruh. Get in the pool.
It's funny. So Lance do that, and then Nick Videos. So Nick Videos challenged Connor, Cowboy Connor, this kind of rad lib guy. And I was like, "All right, Nick, like, fight me." And then Nick posted a video challenging Connor to a boxing match or a fight, and he blocked my name. So, like, I'm mutuals with Nick Videos. I can comment on all his stuff, and he limits his comments. So, like, you'll see him spreading some right-wing video, and then you can see me in the comments with a bunch of likes. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Nick? Because I'm, like, one of the 13 people he lets comment. But the video he made challenging Cowboy Connor to a fight, he blocked my name from appearing in the comments. And then the most recent one I challenged was Benjamin Politics. And after I challenged him to a fight, he started messaging me on Instagram like, "We need to engage in discourse, not personal attacks."
The free marketplace of ideas. Bro, fuck you. I just got to play one clip. It's my favorite Zizek clip, frankly, because this is like me in a nutshell.
That's why I am a Leninist. It's a joke, but not quite.
Wait. One more. This is how I feel about British people.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
Fuck England, man. Oh my god, I'm so happy this motherfucker got called out. Can you please engage with me in the marketplace of ideas after your swim race? Right, someone wants a fit check. 1 second. Let me get the full fit on. I don't want to go full, whatever. But it is the anniversary of the death of a certain individual, and I'm probably part of the coastal populist left, and they probably don't like this individual. But we do have the First Amendment in our country. So let me just be clear with where I stand. Let me just lay it out. This is just the reality. Frankly, if you end the Holocaust, you're cool with me. That's how I feel. That's how the Jewish community feels. They don't know they feel that, but they will. So that's all I'll say. Look, obviously incredible amounts of flaws. Obviously, if I had to pick like 200 people to lead a country, it wouldn't be him. He had all of his issues, but here's the fit.
You know who had also a lot of flaws? The Romanovs. And you know who robbed banks to help overthrow them? A certain individual who died today.
So that's all we'll say. I'm seeing this girl who's Ukrainian, who's like a big anti-communist, and the first time she's beautiful. If she's watching, you're wonderful, and we're having a great time. We've only seen each other like 4 times, so if you are watching, it's a little creepy, and it's weirder for you than it is for me to talk about you. So checkmate. But she was like, "You're not a communist, right?" And I sort of froze, and I was just like, "No, like what?" Because I don't really talk about politics with people on like a first date, so I'll just be like, I was like, "No, like communist." Like, what? And like the second time we hung out, I was like, she was like, "Oh, I'm trying to go viral on TikTok." And I was like, let me be clear. I myself am not viral on TikTok, but I do have a single video that is viral on TikTok that seems like it will haunt me for the rest of my life. So yes, I'm a communist. And then she came to my room and she didn't like this one poster, but this is what I have above my desk to sort of motivate me. That's nice. Raising the flag over the Reichstag. And I mean, frankly, as someone who's, I don't want to play like the identity card, but all I'll say is that's a pretty big win for the Jewish community. I mean, so, the Soviets were anti-Semitic. Like, sure, fine. Like, let me concede that point. I don't even want to engage. Let's just be clear on what the raising of that flag means, and you can show me what the other flag was. And we can have a little, and everyone's like, well, then you're just dealing in like what? I deal in the historical realities. Look, like, I'm not like a fan of the fellow who died today. He's not my favorite dude, but he's not Hitler. So
yes, and there's a lot of analysis in this book, State and Revolution, of what Germany was at the time, and the German socialists were becoming opportunists and social democrats, and they were saying, we don't need dictatorship of the proletariat.
And Marx was right. I mean, one of the things about Marx, we can get into deep theory right now because we're both, it's Friday night and we're both, Friday in reference to I don't want to say much more than that. But one of the things about Marx, I don't know if you know James Chaim, Chai Clips or whatever.
He's one of my best buddies. Me and James talk. Anytime I have something I'm confused about, I FaceTime James. James
is the best. I mean, that's how James and I actually started talking. I was sort of confused about the anti-Semitism, quote unquote, in Marx, and James was like, okay, like he is anti-Semitic, like, in the sense like today he'd be anti-Semitic. Like, let me give you the context, and it was big for me. And he said, how many said on my Discord? Want to get James in here right now?
Is he here? I would love to get James.
Yeah, I'll call James. That's one
of my favorite people in the world, literally.
James,
I love that dude.
James is the GOAT.
He is.
I haven't talked to James in a while. James uses they/he pronouns, right?
I believe so.
Yes. All right, based. I'm just Thomas Paine is based, and I will defend him to my death, even though I'm a Marxist.
So would my buddy Carlos, who is getting his graduate degree in philosophy. He enjoys Thomas Paine. So
Thomas Paine went right from the American Revolution to the French Revolution. A revolutionary, died a revolutionary. I always be like, all right, would Fred Hampton respect this guy? And I feel like Fred Hampton would not respect me, but he would respect Thomas Paine. Did you see Judas and the Black? James, oh my God, you're being mentioned. Click the link. You are welcome to the live stream. We're all having just come.
Oh, okay. What's going on? Hold on.
On my YouTube, we're having an end of the week Friday night stream, and Eddie and I are like, oh, James is one of our favorite people. And then I was like, does James want to come on? And then Eddie was like, oh, bring James on. So then I was like, all right, I will text James. And then I called you, and then I
Okay.
called you a second time. You picked up. Yeah, I've given you the whole gist. All right. Let me, James. All right. But one of the other things, too, is like, in terms of, giving me context in terms of Marx, but giving me context in terms of like history. And like when you understand the history of like Europe at the time,
Right.
that was really big for me, sort of contextualizing the USSR, because like, sure, the USSR was like bad by like the standards of like, I don't know, like,
Yeah. Like 2020 liberal democracy.
right. Like, look, if you were gay in the USSR, that was not a good time. Look, Jews had a difficult time in the USSR early on, especially probably from Stalin's life to early Khrushchev, and even later on, they probably didn't have equal rights, et cetera, et cetera. But my argument always was, and I know this is not meant to exonerate the Soviet Union and say it was okay, like, because it's not that there were not LGBT activists in the early 1900s. There were. They have been forever, who were saying this isn't fair. So I don't want to be like, that's one of my issues with people say, oh, the Times was this. I do agree that like, oh, you shouldn't like cancel somebody because they disagree with the Times. But I also think it is a little reductive to be like, okay, but there were people who were saying, this isn't correct. You know what I mean? And there's a little bit of both.
Yeah, you have to understand the historical context that every philosopher was writing in. Like,
Right.
Me and my buddy have been talking about Marcuse a lot, like
Ooh,
a lot of Marcuse's philosophy about how like socialism will never come about and how there's a homogenous culture between the ruling class and the working class. That's before Reagan and 40 years of neoliberalism, right? Like he was a communist living in the 60s and 70s, watching the US essentially have this labor aristocracy and the Soviet Union do these things that a lot of communists were against. And he was writing like about how communism will never come about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you have to understand the historical context too of being a communist stuck in the 70s. Like that's horrible. And it's the same with Marx, like he lived within a certain historical context, and to understand that, to understand him, you have to understand the context as well. Because philosophy is just trying to pull abstract ideas from the material reality, if you're a Marxist, at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Sorry, I'm just texting someone. Someone commented, hey, this is a general question. I'm no historian, but I commented on Eddie's TikTok about Stalin and referenced how Stalin's 5-year plan was bus. I don't know what bus means. And I always hear about Stalin sending Jews. I assume bus means negative. And Stalin had multiple. So in reference to the comment, Eddie can get into this if he wants. I'll answer it preliminarily.
I can, yeah.
There were a number of 5-year plans, correct? And then someone said the gulags was anti-Semitic, which I'm no way denying. So sending any Jew to the gulags, anti-Semitic, and no way denying. So Stalin was personally an anti-Semite. That's undeniable if you look at his personal letters and his personal interactions. He personally was an anti-Semite, unlike like I'm having a conversation with Joseph and I'm Jewish and he's expressed some beliefs. That's not great. That's undeniable. Look at his personal letters and even his freaking doodles during some meetings. He has this thing that's like him hanging a Jew for the sake of him being a Jew. When you look at his policies, and again, we look at systems, not people, though people are important when they have massive power in a country. I'm not saying, forget it. He has some policies that some of them were targeted towards quote unquote rootless cosmopolitans. Now, the rootless cosmopolitan stereotype has been very commonly attributed towards Jews. However, this sort of policy was incredibly common in Europe in the 20th century. I would say towards the end of Stalin's life, it became more unacceptable in Europe than it became in other sections. So take France and Great Britain. However, it's also important to remember the context. Now, this context doesn't exonerate Stalin. Let me be clear. But it also puts things, again, in context. So what do I mean by that? I mean that while we cannot say that Stalin was some paragon of Jewish rights, some hero of Jewish rights, it's also important to remember that if you were a Jew living in Poland in, say, 1929, It's not like you could have gone anywhere else. Now, that is not to say that the situation was acceptable or good. It is to say that the situation was as such, where is sort of the best opportunity I can get? Because let's take a broad approach to this and say Europe was violently anti-Semitic. Agree. And it's totally true. But where is the best life I can get? I would rarely say the USSR. Probably towards the end of World War II, I'd say the USSR, only because Britain deported a lot of Jews back to Germany, especially towards the end. It was never the beautiful shining star for Judaism or Jewish culture, and towards the end, it did become very anti-Semitic. It's not really talked about under Gorbachev, but you're not going to find me defending Gorbachev, so I'm not super worried about that either way. It was never a shining star for the rights of Jews, but it's important to contextualize it in Europe. Europe, throughout the entirety of the existence of the USSR, was incredibly anti-Semitic, culminating in some horrible tragedies. I know we all know about the Holocaust, and one of my favorite YouTubers, Big Joel, who's very liberal but a great YouTuber, he's just great. He gave sort of a trigger warning that I thought was just very useful. I was like, all right, I can use this too. It was basically an all-encompassing trigger warning. So fair warning, if you are upset by just about anything, let me know. But I'm gonna illustrate to you sort of the attitudes towards Jews in other countries. And I'm gonna give great detail because I want to be very clear. So again, if you are upset by blood or assault or any of these things, or murder, any of these things, please stop watching and I'll be, give me 60 seconds. But let's start with the Iron Garden, Romania. And then Eddie, you too, trigger warning. But the Iron Garden, Romania took all of the Jews out from Bucharest, burned every single synagogue in the capital of Romania, and invaded a kosher steakhouse. And they hung every single Jew up alive on the hooks for the beef, and they labeled them kosher meat, and they skinned them alive. And the Ustasa in Croatia, a lot of these archives have not been open for the activities of the Ustasa, but that was the fascist group in Croatia that Comrade Tito helped, and toast to him, remove, again, for all the flaws of Tito and for all the flaws of Stalin and all these people. I want to look at the alternatives. Look, I don't like Ceausescu. In fact, I despise Ceausescu. I think he was a despot and a dictator. But again, we have to look at the alternative, which was the Iron Guard, putting Jews quite literally on meat hooks and skinning them alive. This is about, someone said this is about the Soviet reign that I'm talking about in Romania. It's absolutely not during the Soviet reign. This happened, look up the Iron Guard uprising. I believe this is in 1940 or 1941. This is not during the Soviet reign, my friend. This is after Cordreanu died for 3 years later. This is not during the Soviet reign. And so this attitude was incredibly common towards Jewish people. Now, someone satirically in the comments goes, one wonders why they were so hostile towards Jews. I've deleted a lot of my videos, but it's important to remember that I have debated a number of fascists on the JQ in my past, and it's not ended well for the fascists. So if you want to engage with me in Discord DMs, please do, but the JQ has been debunked a number of times. So And the reason I give you these things, and these are meant to elicit emotions. They're not meant to just give you the general facts. They genuinely are meant to elicit emotions, is that it's to show you how brutal the anti-Semitism was. Because anti-Semitism now is sort of talked about as sort of a general concept that sort of exists. And sometimes someone says something about Jews, and you're like, all right, that's just plainly anti-Semitic. I'm sure we've all had friends that have said some shit, and you're like, all right, dude, like that's just fucked. But as a more common thing in the United States, anti-blackness is so ubiquitous. Like, we all know, like, if you're white, like 10 people who are anti-black. If they're your friends or your enemies or your family, whatever, who are like viciously anti-black. Whereas anti-Semitism, especially on the coast, because I talk about what I know and what I've grown up in, is a very different sort of concept. And again, I give you these different histories because of the USSR, which was very anti-Semitic. But again, I want to say, what was the alternative? And the alternative was what I'm describing. And what was liberated was the areas I'm describing. And the situations that were improved was the areas I'm describing. Stalin was an anti-Semitic individual. The USSR was an anti-Semitic regime. However, Russia before the USSR was anti-Semitic. Russia during the USSR was anti-Semitic, and of course Russia now is anti-Semitic. Look what they've done in Crimea when they invaded and made all the Jews sign their names on a list. The Russia of today and yesterday and the day before is anti-Semitic. It has nothing to do with communism or Marxism or the USSR. So sorry, that was a long-winded thing. It was just like my area of expertise. Yeah.
No, yeah, I almost have nothing to add. Like, I think you covered it all there. But like, the Hitler's party, the Nazis were what they were, and they were crushed by the hammer of communism, as our buddy James says. Which I don't know where James is.
James said he had to finish a bottle of grape juice. He'll be here soon for this
nice
Friday night. Yeah, as one does, juice.
Yes, but that's the thing. A lot of people, and I've seen people call James a piece of shit for idolizing the USSR for winning that war. It's like, what? Like, I mean,
yeah, and it's so important to me. It's like I don't idolize them in a vacuum. Like if the USSR existed today, I mean, trust me, I'd be the first person on TikTok to be like, yeah, it's weird when you enter a public school to put your race and religion according to some weird government-sponsored phenotype of a side profile that you have, which was the case. Right. But this was in the 1930s and 40s. Someone said, again, XYL, who I'm sure is some fascist. Let me just debunk this quickly. Yeah, the whole of Europe was just randomly and unjustly hostile to Jews, completely unprovoked. Okay, if you believe in the Jewish question, you can't not just prove a Jewish majority of things you don't like. You have to prove intent. So if you can XYL in my comments prove intent towards an actual push towards views you don't like that was Jewish, not an intent towards a specific thing that there was a lot of Jews involved in, go for it. But if you can prove that intent was Jewish, go for it. I have yet to see such a proof. Please. And once you do, then I'll engage in it. Yes, I've read all the books by Kevin McDonald and all your anti-Semitic heroes, I promise. That's literally my focus for my major. Oh my God, the fucking it's like, because they say things that are like obvious and they go to a place where you're like, all right, well, I've lost you. Like, Jews are overrepresented in X industry. I'm like, all right, well, prove that they're manipulating it. And they're like, well, but there are a lot of them. And I'm like, oh, okay, prove that they're like doing stuff. And they're like, well, but there's a majority. You don't understand. All right. The NBA is majority black. Is there a black conspiracy to get black people into the NBA for malicious purposes? I haven't found one. I simply have not found one.
Right.
There is a massive discrepancy, though. It seems a little unfair. I don't know.
I have to go to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. James should be here soon. Did I see the video of a man going around a kosher market and making people say free Palestine? No, that seems pretty shitty. I mean, yeah, there are those people, a lot of these but it's important to remember too that a lot of these quote unquote free Palestine people are just ultra nationalists and they are reactionary and right wing. And obviously that's shitty and nasty and all these things. And I certainly don't support it. That's obvious, and obviously none of you support it. But remember that I don't want to be too heavy-handed with people of color, because obviously I'm not a person of color, but it feels like white people paint all people of color under this broad brush, and so when certain people of color do like reactionary, right-wing, conservative things, a lot of white people get very like up in arms about it. Well, not even up in arms, sort of surprised in a marginal sort of way that X person of color could do X thing. And it is this sort of subtle racism of like, well, people of color can be right-wing bigots. And if you are a right-wing cultural Palestine nationalist who just walks up to Jews and says, "Oh, can you say free Palestine? If not, you're anti-Semitic." Then sure, some Arabs do that, I suppose, but I don't even feel the need to talk about them because they're not of our movement in any sort of meaningful level. You know what I mean? Like, sure, they're reactionary and they're bad and they're nasty and all these bad things. But I think there's this attitude on the left of this idea that like every person of color has to be not progressive, but sort of receptive to leftist ideas. But the fact of the matter is, any sort of random guy who just walks up to like Jews he doesn't even know and is like, "Oh, say free Palestine. If not, you're anti-Semitic." I mean, that's just a reactionary guy, you know? And there's no two ways about it. There's not really any need to make any excuses or oh, but he caveats or he did this, but he's just a reactionary. He's a right-wing reactionary, and anyone of any color can be a right-wing reactionary. And this is an Arab white right-wing reactionary who did a right-wing reactionary thing. So, I mean, and I know you didn't mean it like this. When people say, "Oh, like, you know," I think there's a lot of people who ask Jews about like, "Oh, thoughts on like Arab people who up to Jews and say free Palestine." It's like, well, sure, like they suck. I mean, you know, that's just a weird thing to do. Obviously, not every Jew is responsible for everything Israel does, but these are not left-wing people. These are not people of my movement, and so I don't disregard them in the same way I don't disregard people in America who are not of my movement. But I feel like there are people, or there's sort of this attitude in the left that everyone who's not white sort of should be of our movement, and when they aren't, it's a big surprise. Whereas it's like, no, this is just a Palestinian reactionary who is a right-wing guy who believes in right-wing shit, and obviously I disagree with him, and I will struggle with him and not like judge him categorically, but that's life. But if he walks up to me and says, "Say free Palestine," just because I'm Jewish, yes, free Palestine, I believe that. But if that's sort of his only analysis of me, he's a right-wing reactionary. You know, there's nothing more to be said there. But he's not of me or of my movement just because he's Palestinian. Some Palestinians suck. Some white people suck. Some black people suck. Some trans people suck, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? Like, just because they're of X group doesn't mean they're of my movement. Mm-hmm. I think there's an idea that sort of they should be.
For sure, in the Israel-Palestine, I mean, it's tough because you understand 75% of Palestinians are refugees.
Yeah.
Been pushed off their land, and then a lot of them develop these anti-Semitic views. And it's like, I don't fuck, you know, for you it's a little different, but for me as like a white non-Jewish person, I'm like, I don't fuck with your anti-Semitic views. And they're like, imagine if, you know, Israel pushed you off your land. It's like, I get that, but you still can't be anti-Semitic. But me as someone who's never been pushed off my land, it feels weird talking to them, like, you know, don't be anti-Semitic.
Well, it's very hard because, and for this reason is because Jews are an incredible minority, and so there is this singular Jewish state. There is not a second one. So, for example, if I walked into a Native American reservation and somebody, you know, sort of, and I asked somebody a question about whatever, and they said, "I don't trust white people," I wouldn't be up in arms about that. I'd be upset, and I certainly don't wish that every Native American person distrusts white people. But I wouldn't be screaming to the heavens, "Why, oh, why is this person so misguided?" You know, the reasons are clear as to why they think the way they do.
It's
and that's
not understanding political economy. So I see people saying there's a lot of talk about not being a class reductionist, but there's a lot of people who are race reductionists, right? And that's where these idiotic ideas come from. So you look at the state of Israel, it's an imperialist nation that's been heavily funded by the United States, the largest hegemonic superpower since the early 60s. So it's like, this is just a way for the U.S. to gain a foothold in the Middle East with a pro-capitalist power who enforces, you know, their dominance on other people, especially the Palestinians. So then you have people who don't look at the political economy of that, and they come out with these racist ideas or these anti-Semitic ideas, when in reality, this is just capitalist imperialism in the most basic sense, right? This is Israel expanding their territory, and the whole resources, the oil. But if you don't understand the enemy of it, you can come to these either anti-Semitic ideas or these anti-Palestinian ideas where you think either side is evil because of their race. And of course, that's absurd. You know, there's tons of anti-Zionist Jewish people. Or even if you don't want to use that word Zionist, you know, there's labor Zionists who think like we need dictatorship of the proletariat, whether you're Palestinian or Jewish, you know, and like that's something we should support, I think.
And here is the gorgeous, the wonderful spice trader, porn star, actor, 7-time Emmy Award winning, dated Kate Upton for 6 years. High Clips is joining the stream. I have to take a whiz. Take it away.
Let's fucking go. That's me. That's right. I'm liking the Slavic energy with the tracksuit.
Yeah. Have to take a big fucking Slavic piss.
I'm sorry for the being late. I had both my cousin's bat mitzvah tonight. Well, not tonight. That's actually what part of it was today. And I also was just in a BDS 101 meeting on Clubhouse. And I'm not sure, Eddie, if you're familiar with Clubhouse, but you know anything about? Okay, yeah. So Clubhouse is basically this app that, and this is actually weird. I have like not been on TikTok at all, and which is good. Which is a good thing. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's a good thing. I have not been on this app at all for like I mean, you know, maybe I'll go on every so often, especially to message people and such. But I've been doing work from my room and reading while on Clubhouse, which is like an invite-only app right now. But it's basically you join these rooms, and they're just discussions about anything. I mean, specifically, you know, I'm on the leftist side, and it's really weird because I do think it is kind of a political type of app. It's not supposed to be, but you know, I mean, maybe I don't know if it's just because of the people I'm following or whatever, but it definitely. If you follow people, you can see each room that they're in, and you can like join rooms just based on following, and then you're in the audience and you can come up to speak if you would like. So it's really cool because like I don't know, it's very social. But you also don't have to speak, and you can just listen in and be doing whatever work you want, and you know, like it's not so distracting as some other applications. And I've seen today I was in a room called "Is Marxism Defensible?" Which I don't understand why anyone's asking that question. It's like, is a materialist perspective defensible? Should we end oppression? Like, you know, that should be debated. I don't know. You know, I'm just like, you know, me, I'm a worker. I don't own any capital, but I feel like I should lick the boots of my boss. Right? Like, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Eddie?
No, yeah, I haven't gotten on the app yet. I saw people on the left moving towards it. Was that what your Snapchat story was today? Was that? Was that? I think I don't want to get this app.
Yeah.
I saw that baby thing.
No. I promise. Not all the rooms are like that. But it's okay. So there's a big Palestinian section on the app. I mean, I was invited on by Shadha. I think I don't know. Eddie, you know Shadha. Yeah. She's wonderful. And I definitely have a lot of people on the app that are Palestinian that I'm following. And I've met a lot of really cool people because of that. But there's also like a huge Zionist presence on the app. And I know for a fact that they almost definitely have some connection to the Israeli government, just as the people on Zionist TikTok do.
Yes, they all do for the most part.
Yeah, no, I mean because a lot of the people, you know, that are Zionists, that, you know, for whatever reason, may support it without connection to the government specifically, they don't have the time or the energy to like put into it. Like if there are already people doing like like there's a very specific like amount of like a lot of people who live like I mean like I don't know, like I feel like there's not a whole lot of people that like are a part of that do not have some sort of very specific agenda that they're going to push. And I'm not, everyone has an agenda, right? But the people who like live in a country that benefits them, that have whatever agenda, but they're not specifically being motivated by something very intensely in particular, they're not gonna like they're gonna go about their daily life, and they're not gonna talk about this like at length on social media, like people who are either like extremely pro like it's some form of like anti-oppression or something. I mean, like from a Marxist perspective, we're very much for the class struggle and everything, and so we see social media as a very good place to spread that to a lot of people. But like if the people are already in power, there's way less of a drive. So sometimes I think, and I mean also specifically in the case of Israel, I know there's documented evidence that these governments actually do push people to like, unlike the U.S. government, which doesn't even need to, because some people are so disillusioned to the point where they feel like, oh, like whatever, what are we going to do? The Israeli government knows that if they like even lose a slight bit of their grip on power, there's a very good chance that people will kind of recognize that even a lot of the Jewish citizens of Israel are being mistreated. And there might be like a change in the way people organize, and we even saw that in Israel, right? Like there were Black Panther movements within. Oh, where did Eddie go?
Continue. I have no idea. His computer probably died, but I'm digging on what you're saying.
Yeah. So there was actually a Black Panther movement within Israel. Black Panther movement within Israel in like the 70s, I think. 80s, somewhere around there, and it was a lot of like Mizrahi Jews, who. Oh, 1 second.
Sorry, and you're talking, but once James is done, I have two questions, because James knows more about Israel than I do, and also Ali Ameli, whose name I probably butchered. I know like everyone says that, but I did. So if you can help me say that, go for it. Saying, do you see Netanyahu's response to the ICC? On a side note, I assume that was the monkeys comment from him. So I want to ask, James, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, I want to ask you this question. I might be interrupting, but it's the Friday stream, as I say. So when I interrupt, it means I forget what you were saying, because it's the Friday stream. Yeah, it's so true, and that's why we just fun. So when I talk about Zionism, when I say that I'm a quote-unquote anti-Zionist, which is a term that I don't necessarily like use explicitly, but people call me that, and I'm like, all right, fine, like, because like if this person is a Zionist, then sure, I'm an anti-Zionist. It's not like an ideological term, because I never apply it to myself. I think there's a lot of quote-unquote Zionisms, and there are certain Zionisms like, oh, is there a state for Jewish people? Like, is that ideologically in a vacuum something I'd categorically oppose? I don't think so. I think that's incredibly reductive. I think there are material conditions which would necessitate that, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So all that being said, one of the biggest rejections, and one of the most powerful rejections people do have, and I want to give you this platform to talk about it, because people oftentimes don't know how to respond, is a lot of white Zionists from Upper West Side, Upper East Side, Manhattan, especially New York City where I grew up. Wealthy Zionists will weaponize sort of Ethiopian Jewish trauma for their own benefit, which is that's how it is. But it is also not untrue that Ethiopian Jews did have trauma. It doesn't not exist just because they weaponize it, which is another thing. Like, just because someone weaponizes a trauma they don't have doesn't mean it certainly doesn't exist. How do you respond to somebody who says, okay, you oppose Zionism, but what about the Ethiopian Jews? They certainly had a rough time of it, didn't they? And Israel certainly saved them, didn't they? You know, what if there wasn't any Israel? What would have happened to these Jews?
Well, I think that so definitely that is a thing. Like, I don't think Israel solved that trauma, though.
Mhm.
You know, I
Can you
don't think
tell
that this. Hmm?
Can you tell people about that though? Like, why didn't Israel solve that?
Well, I think that the state of Israel, what it does is it promote. Well, first of all, I think that there's a lot of different things that are like. I mean, like, I don't want to necessarily speak for Ethiopian Jews because I know that there's a lot of differing perspectives on that. And there are specifically people who are very pro-Zionist that are just as there are people who are from the diaspora that are very pro-Zionist, and there are also people who are anti-Zionist from every perspective.
And
And
that's a big, I just want to stress that is a big point. And this is, I know I'm interrupting, but again, it's the Friday stream. But I find this a lot. Maybe there are people watching, certainly anyone from my friend group. When you trot out somebody from a specific identity who believes a specific thing, it's incredibly reductive.
Yes.
Yeah, if they have a different experience of mine, I will like listen to them. If I'm like, oh, X, Y, and Z was good, and they're like, oh, I grew up in X, Y, and Z, and it wasn't good, I'm not going to be like, oh, fuck you, you're wrong. Like, certainly I will listen to them. But that's not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
Like, let me be clear, in a revolution, an economic revolution, there will be poor people who are displaced. Not everybody who fled the Russian, Cuban, and Chinese revolution was filthy rich. Obviously, not every single person fled or was frankly targeted. And there are proletarians who were targeted by the Cuban Revolution and the Chinese Revolution and the Russian Revolution, et cetera, et cetera. And support that, but it is the reality. But it doesn't debunk anything. I just want it for people watching. I just want to just because you trot out somebody from a specific identity, that's more essentialist than it is constructive.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I just want to. Sorry, if anyone's actually watching at 2 hours and 41 minutes.
I think people are poisoned by ideology. I really do. I think people are absolutely poisoned. I mean, and like we all are, like in some way, you know, or another. Unfortunately, that's like kind of how it is. But I think that there's certainly different ideological perspectives that let us kind of have more of a grasp of the material conditions than some other ones, right? I mean, there are a lot of people in the working masses that are believe in QAnon. That you know, like, I mean, just from doing social investigation, I've heard people even speak about Karl Marx and call him a Freemason, even though he's spoken at length about being anti-Freemasonry in a few of his speeches, or like at least I don't know if it was a speech or it was a letter, but he actually did have something that he talked about that. But again, it's because, you know, there are other hit pieces that are published, like the Elders of the Protocol of Zion, that say, you know, Jews, even though Karl Marx was very secular and also like legally not Jewish, but that doesn't really matter to people who are anti-Semitic. And so but that is another ideology, right? That is something that like I mean, like, but it does translate to the material world. And so when I see people who like kind of take identity as the end all be all, like without addressing the material aspects of that identity, it kind of, if they're unwilling to acknowledge that and they're not really grounded in reality, then I don't really know how productive a discussion with them is. But like I think that, like, yeah, it's also really weird how, you know, like on one hand I could talk about, like, you know, like Ethiopian Jews, or I mean even other types of Jewish people who were targeted by the various places that they were in. I mean, there are tons of, like, okay, yeah, we can talk about, like, the fact that, like, you know, Ethiopian Jewish people had trauma, and that's very true, and I'm never going to negate that. But oh shit, sorry, 1 sec. I just actually started playing music on my.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I think that there was, I mean, like, I don't know, like, you know, like a lot of the Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardic Jews, in like in Europe and even North Africa, have trauma from being in Europe and North Africa because of the intense anti-Semitism there that led in a culmination in the Holocaust. But does that negate what's going on to Palestinian in the Palestinian occupation today? No, of course not.
Right. Even if they are being brutalized, if you clear land and they are benefiting off the oppression of someone else, that doesn't negate the oppression that is being done on their behalf, despite their conditions. Yeah,
exactly.
I interrupted. I had
you're absolutely.
I know I'm right, but I also just said exactly what you said in my own words. But at the same time, it's my YouTube channel, so it's exactly what my job is. So, no apologies. Continue.
And I think that that's really important to acknowledge, and I think that a lot of people, unfortunately, because of this poisonous ideology of Zionism specifically, not even of Jewish self-determination, which we can get at length into an argument about whether or not Jews as a whole even constitute a nation. Certainly, there is a nation now in Israel of the like the Hebrew nation or whatever you want to call it. The people who are living there.
Yeah, I want to interrupt. Stalin in Marxism and the National Question talked about the nation. What is the relevance, James? How is that relevant today, and how is that totally not relevant? If you don't have an answer for how is that totally not relevant, I'll yell at you, but I'm sure you do. Continue. Because I just want to reiterate, it's like, what, 60 to 70 pages? Like, you can read that in 3 days if you are terrible at reading.
It's a great piece. It's honestly my favorite piece by Stalin.
And he's not a difficult writer, so you can power through that. It has a lot of stuff that's very good, and some of his stuff about the Caucasus are a little reactionary, and we see how that manifested later. I know Eddie wants to say something, and I'm totally monopolizing, but it's my channel, private property. You have to say no. Continue, James. After that, I won't talk to Eddie.
I just want to say, I want to preface this with I've actually been meaning to reread that piece recently because it's been mentioned a few times recently in conversation with me, and I feel like, although I actually read it several times over this past summer, it's been a little bit since I've addressed that piece in my own reading. But I want to say that, like, I mean, I do think that it is still my favorite piece by Stalin, and I also want to note that this was written in the 1910s, so it was before. So even if anyone here who is watching, for whatever reason, does not like Stalin, Koba, whatever you want to call him, that was his nickname in prison, was Koba. Which I think
and that's totally true. I mean, you read what people wrote and what they thought, and just because they didn't do what they thought, it doesn't mean that it's not good. And there are many examples of all across the spectrum. I don't know if you've actually read any of Thomas Sankara's writings. He didn't write a lot, but his writings they're fine. They're not like, I don't disagree with any of them, but they're not like, oh wow, like this is so great. But look what he did. I mean,
some parts of his writings are fantastic. Like yeah, I agree with you.
But I don't read like Thomas Sankara. I'm like, this needs to be a whole ideology. That's my point. Like, there are some parts of him that it's like, and there's something to that, but his actions are incredible. And there's someone, like Stalin, where I personally disagree with a lot of his actions, but a lot of his writings are very worth it. The point is, a lot of people who disregard reading or writings just because of the actions of someone are very misguided.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that too. But in terms of I guess kind of what Jewish people do not constitute a nation in the same sense as Stalin would have, like a national minority, at least, as Stalin or Lenin even would have agreed with, that needs self-determination because of the fact that we were in diaspora for so long and developed very different and varying cultures all around the world. So I think that this struggle for self-determination and national liberation came from a lot of different places, but when it culminated, it it, eventually revived Hebrew as a language, and it did create a shared culture and all of these different things. And so the people living in Israel right now, and anyone who makes Aliyah, pretty much does become a part of that. And so it's also then important to recognize that when we apply people like Fanon to, or however you want to say, like Fanon's solution to decolonization was kicking out the colonizers.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that in Israel unless you want to pretty much kill everyone there. Like you,
Right.
like literally everyone would die, and it wouldn't just be Israelis. It would also
they wouldn't
Can
fucking. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
springboard off into what I was gonna say? Yeah, and like I've been widely accused by libertarians of being an anti-Semite, but what talking to James has taught me is like there's a massive amount of Jewish people who have been oppressed in that region, and Jewish people aren't indigenous to the land of Palestine. So what the solution then is like Marxists have talked about in the national question, is dictatorship of the proletariat. Is you have workers take control, and what the Israeli state is at this point is a pro-capitalist imperialist state backed by the United States, and before the 1960s backed by the British.
I agree.
So what you need, but I mean the conflict has been going on so long now. I mean that's not.
I would like to say it's not a conflict. It's an occupation. I just want to say that it is an occupation.
I mean, and this is the thing too. I mean, if it was a conflict, it was a conflict. But when all the arms and the money is on one side, and it's not like a statement on some sort of international stranglehold of octopus control. Let's say. I mean, look, broke is thinking that Israel controls the United States. I mean, that's broke. Woke is understanding that the United States controls Israel, and for very basic reasons. And it's not because the United States loves Jews or is controlled by Jews. If every single Middle Eastern state functioned like Israel, the United States private companies would have an easier time. If every single Middle Eastern state functioned like, I don't know, Syria, that'd be a disaster. But I don't know, fucking Iraq, pre-invasion, United States private companies would have a more difficult time. And that's not to say that, nationalized Iraq was some utopia of proletarian, determinism or something, but it's not because of like Jewish influence. Sure, AIPAC exists because of Jewish influence, but if AIPAC was like nationalize every industry, especially oil, and also invade other countries for their oil, which we will also nationalize. Watch how fast the United States would turn on their lovely, pro-Zionist stance. It just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also like it's really weird. There is some like ideological weird shit that the evangelical Zionists believe. I don't. Wait, actually, I want to let Eddie finish his point.
Yeah, you go for it.
Oh, I mean, I was basically done. I was just saying, dictatorship of the proletariat is what we need. And at this point, you've had 100 years plus of occupation backed by the most capitalist power. So when I talk to like people within the Palestinian movement, or like, I know people who have had relatives who were in PLO who literally got murdered by the Israeli state, they have different views on it than me, and sometimes I feel like their views do dip into anti-Semitism, and I'm against that. But that's the context of the situation. Is you've had this,
right, and that's the point. There's
but at the core of it is imperialism, is capitalism.
And if there's
the
context,
dictatorship of the proletariat is our only way out.
And I will struggle with people against their beliefs, but I so agree with this, and obviously Adolf Reed would agree with this too. I mean, this idea of like race essentialism is not our friend.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
And like racism is not like it's just a product of capitalism. Like obviously none of us, agree with that. I mean, then you have like racist communism. Obviously there's a lot, more there, but we also disagree with this.
Saying that it's a product of capitalism is different. Saying that it will be eliminated
No, and I agree, but it's such a common thing, like especially on campus, like coastal campus, like like racism is just like a product of capitalism. Like, what do you mean a product? Like, you don't think like people in like 2000 BC were like racist? Like, of course they were racist. Like they said.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. But they were different.
Oh no,
it
like
wasn't white supremacy. It wasn't white supremacy.
Aristotle said like, Germanic barbarians and Ethiopian savages were the same level of dumb. And it's like, right, because race is a thing that we made up. Like, yeah, Aristotle was just as racist to northern white people as he was to southern black people, but it doesn't mean he wasn't racist. It just means that this random race essentialist idea that we've derived from the aether is bullshit. Right. So race.
I agree. And people don't have an understanding of anthropology at that point. People don't have an understanding of archaeology, like of all of these different things, right? That we can actually determine from, taking a materialist view of history.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing, I mean, even people like Moses Hess, who I really hate, for like, because his understanding of history was that everything is a racial struggle, which is so dumb.
He's on the Communist Manifesto, and he's like, okay, but what if really racist?
No, but like seriously, I mean, but that's the thing, is that he studied history and he saw, well, wait a minute, race is also a common factor in a lot of these things, and it was, but like, it wasn't the bottom line. It was class.
And that's the thing, racism changes, like like a racist in like 1890 AD even would be dramatically racist from dramatically differently racist from a racist today. Like, and like, let's even go back to somewhere like so far back in time. Why don't we? And I ask a person in France in 900 AD, are you white? They'd be like, what? Like, what the fuck does that mean? And, you could press them and say, oh, your skin is certainly, lighter than this person from like central Nigeria. And they'd be like, yes, that's true. But like, what about it? But, before you ask them what race they'd be, and they didn't even know that, I'm a Frank, I'm a Catholic, I'm under this nobility, et cetera, I'm of house this. So just because racism
I do want to.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. It's the Friday stream. Interrupt.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, and also I'd like to add. I mean, please invite me to more of these streams, because I think that this is.
I totally will. The issue is that you're just not as popular as Eddie. So.
Yeah, I get it.
No, I'm kidding.
I remember I followed Eddie. I remember Eddie followed me, and it was like, damn, this dude has like. I probably had on.
I commented on Eddie's North Korea video. I was just like, follow me back. Like, what is this shit? Like, how dare you?
You guys were two of the first people I followed. I was like, these guys are fucking based. And then now, like, Benjamin Politics is accusing me of being anti-Semitic. And I don't want to use the I have black friends argument, but I'm like, two of my favorite people are James and Kosher.
No, but like, here's the thing though. It's like, if you can substantiate that argument with actual people who agree with you, I genuinely feel like, at least from my perspective, it's semi-legitimate. Like, not like legitimate as like, oh, it doesn't exempt you from anything. Like, sure, you could still be, but if Benjamin Politics was like, this person is anti-Semitic, I'd be like, well, no. He's not.
Politics is like anti-Semitic, though.
That's my point. It's like, oh, sure, like Eddie could.
Wait, you want to see some shit? Wait, you want to see some shit?
Benjamin Politics is far more likely to be anti-Semitic. Go for it.
You want to actually see some shit? Okay, so Benjamin Politics has dog whistled about Jews before. Straight up.
I'm shocked.
Benjamin Politics commented journalism with a JOO,
it's an interesting way to misspell that word.
No, that's definitely it's definitely dog whistling, and that's the point. It's like, well, is it or is it not?
I would certainly agree. I mean, I certainly wouldn't spell that word that way.
Yeah, no, let's take the look. I don't know if you can see the hold on. Somebody actually sent this to me. And it was a okay. So I don't know if you can
I'm looking. Journalism. Yeah, that
And
definitely.
it was in response to
Oh no.
Oh,
and
Oh boy.
yeah, that's and Benjamin Politics is out here saying, oh, and this is the thing. I don't follow Benjamin Politics. I don't get any of his videos in my lot, in whatever, like somebody sent that to me and was like, I think I found Benjamin dog whistling, right? So I because I purposely cater everything that I do to not have reactionaries encounter them. Because I think that dialogue with them in any sense, I think that it normalizes things, just as like people talk about no normalization with Zionists. I mean, like, yeah, I agree, and I think that normalization with any of these people is wrong unless you can utterly fucking destroy them and then just ignore them like Eddie did. You have to do it very extremely strategic.
It's not even about platforming. Because this is the thing too, if a Nazi has a platform, like a legitimate Nazi of like 1 million people, then they do have the platform. And then you should engage with them. The only time I feel like you should not engage, and Ben Burgess, I actually talked to him a couple of days ago, talking about Richard Spencer. Richard, it was great. You should watch it. Ben, he was really on ball.
He was on Michael. What's his name?
He was on me show. I literally talked to him yesterday. You should watch my YouTube video.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, we talked about Michael Brooks and stuff, but he said like he would debate anyone, but like with context, because he said if Rich, and I love this because I was about to be like anyone, but he said like if Richard Spencer, and he literally used the term almost verbatim, emerged from his hole and was like want to debate. It's not that Ben Burgess can't engage with those ideas, but it's like these ideas are dead. Like nobody actually cares about these ideas anymore. Ben Burgess is Richard Spencer is so fringe. But, if the quote unquote Richard Spencer party ever gained like 1 million votes, we never would platform them.
Wait, did you just call him French?
Did I?
Fringe. You said he's fringe.
I would never call Ben Burgess French. I would rather. I mean, that's the worst slur imaginable. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, honestly.
Benjamin Politics or Cam Higby? Cam Higby in 100%. Because I don't think Cam Higby has like read a book, and I hold that. And that's not even like class.
Benjamin Politics also doesn't read books. Benjamin Politics.
But I feel like he does read books. So just read books like Why Women Deserve Less, and he's like, like 600 pages. Like this is a good use of my time. Whereas I'm genuinely like, all right. No, but I genuinely think like Benjamin Politics is like a legitimate understanding of Marx, and he's just evil. Where I feel like if Cam Higby read Marx, like he would still like reject it probably categorically, but he wouldn't just be like this is just the worst. Like,
well, he wouldn't be able to make a bad faith criticism because he wouldn't know.
Right. Or yeah, exactly. Or with Benjamin Politics, he'd just be like, think about the billionaires.
No, somebody. So
what about their land? Like, what if the state takes their land? How dare you?
I was discussing this app Clubhouse with Eddie earlier, but I was on this app.
I was on this app. That shit.
How do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to be on it? I can invite you.
That's all it takes. Yeah,
I think I have 2 more invites left. So if Eddie or you, Kosher, would like to join the app.
Wait, but James, what about Judeo-Christian values?
Oh, so true. So true.
I literally remember when Aristotle was writing his thesis on politics, and he was like, "Yes, when Germans rewrite this 4,000 years from now, that will be relevant to what I write." And then he was like, "Oh, what about the Western canon? I really hope this gets to Rome and then gets to France and then develops a system of liberal democracy in the 1900s."
Right? No, I mean, like these people were all taking they were all taking that all into account.
I think that Aristotle said, if I read Rousseau, I would agree totally, because if you've read me, that's exactly the same thing that I was saying.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also like when people were writing the Bible in Aramaic, they were like, okay, how will people use this to justify slavery in the United States of America? Right? I think that was like something.
I want to justify racial capitalism in 2021, and the economics of the Bible in 1800 BC.
When Jesus was sitting there praying with his head down, praying to Allah. he was like, because that is the word for God in Aramaic.
You get yourself in trouble.
Is it? No, but like genuinely.
No, I know, but if you say Muslim, the entire United States just goes, hey, what's that got to do with Abrahamic religion? Buzz off, man. What the hell?
Kosher, you're going too far with Abrahamic religion. It's Judeo-Christian. It's not Abrahamic. It's Judeo-Christian. You have to understand that there's a distinction to be made there.
What the hell does Islam have to do with Levantine monotheism, you son of a bitch? You don't even know your history.
No, but like seriously, what does Protestantism have to do with Levantine religion? That's the real question. What does Protestantism
with monotheism?
I pray to Martin Luther and his book, The Jews and Their Lies.
Great album.
Actually, no, I pray to John Calvin, who said predestination is a thing. Because,
for those watching, please remember to like the video. If you don't, you hate Jews. We should end in about like 5-10 minutes because I have actual evening plans, I promise.
Damn.
I know, crazy.
Wait, someone said they're a Kai guy. Who's Kai? I don't know. I don't even know who that is.
Please be goyifying the spelling of Kai.
Yeah, that's Kai. High Fidelity. That's my name now on TikTok. I changed it.
I'm sure that's what this person meant because they would never mean hi, I'm Kai. I'm an American nationalist and paleoconservative. I believe in the Republican values, and I'm a strong social conservative. I'm done.
Are you?
Dude, that was so scary. Can we talk about that? Because the Republican hype house is full of morons. Complete, absolute morons. They don't know what they're talking about. But then you have Kai, who's scary. Kai is scary. Like, he understands, stuff, and he's still like a fash. And then he's the Republican hype house was platforming him. When that happened, I was like, this is horrible.
Right.
But that was the thing too, where it was like, bro, I wish like, I don't know, like a Democratic hype house would have like so many followers that like you, me, Eddie, or I don't even know. I said you in reference to there are 3 of us, myself or 2 of the other people, could join and they'd be like, oh my God, they're platforming a communist. You know what I mean? Like obviously it's bad they platform Kai, like duh. But it's just like, it bothers me that the left is like, well, what's our response? You know what I mean? Like, because we don't even have the equivalent of like a quote unquote Republican hype house. And everyone's like, oh, well, that's just the online left. And it's like, well, everyone from our generation is fucking online. Like, I hate that to be the case. But if you're just like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's just the online left. Like, I organize in person, but like, when I organize in the city, like everyone knows the online left. Like, because it's it's not like a separate subset. It's sort of an outcropping.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, but that's the reality. So
right, the internet is a psyop from the CIA.
Yeah. So Victoria Hammett is a comment now. She's definitely not going to follow me. I was pretty brutal to her. That's the thing too. With like everyone's like, oh, like, are you being derisive or are you being supportive? Again, I'm collectivist and I'm not really good with people. Like, I'm good with people on a very specific level. People that I agree with, I can definitely lead them over. You bring me a social democrat, I'll make them a communist. And I guarantee you that. But in terms of my job, I deride people. And I was brought over to the left based on derision. I mean, this is like way back. This is not like to the left versus to the right. This is like, I used to watch Ben Shapiro and now I watch, Joe Rogan and I'm 14 and I'm like, yeah, wait a minute, giving the health of people to the private market where only profit is incentivized is a bad idea. This is not like, I went from like center right to center left. But there is a place for derision. But I do want to talk about Victoria Hammett and socialism because I certainly didn't help with that. What do we think? Like, are people receiving it well? They need to receive it well. Is anyone saying you're not a real socialist? Because if they are, I'll fucking kill them.
I think Victoria moving to socialism is huge. And like, obviously huge. I'm fucking preoccupied with TikTok because that's where I happen to get big. But it's like, for me, as someone who's been spreading, I became a socialist long before TikTok was even a thing. And for someone who's been spreading socialism on TikTok, to see a prominent liberal like that literally critiquing her own videos, taking her own videos and being like, this is wrong, I'm a socialist now, is like, holy shit, this is a dub,
And are people receiving it well? Because I'm not on TikTok.
So.
The only reason I ask is because I remember when Amare Stoudemire, I know this is totally fucking random. Someone said an hour ago, you said be careful how you approach people as you can bring them to leftism, and I agree with that. I think it's true, but you can still approach people through derision. There is a way to do that. You can deride people into agreeing with you.
Yes,
there is. It's a very specific thing, and I'm not saying that I am the pinnacle of that, but sometimes it's my approach. And by the way, sometimes it's okay to mock people. You don't have to be nice to everyone. Again, it's strategy, and it's not some manipulative bullshit game. Because you are never like, if you are shitting on working people, then you are part of the bullshit game. Like then don't do that. But it is a strategic game. I see you, James. Don't worry. I'm just talking. No, I agree with you. But in terms of Victoria, it just reminds me of the Amare Stoudemire thing. I remember Amare Stoudemire converted to Judaism. For those that don't know who he is, he's a great basketball player. He's not like a Michael Jordan or a Magic Johnson, but he was very dominant for a number of years. He was very into Israel.
So I'm just saying. And Trisha Paytas.
James, I swear to God, you are literally referenced in the next article I'm writing. I want to read you the passage why that's relevant. Not even actually relevant, but it's actually truly funny. So I want to cite it. That's actually why I'm talking about it. But it's relevant enough that I can cite it. On Super Bowl Sunday, a bunch of coastal leftists made a big stink about not watching the Super Bowl. In their infinite wisdom, they pointed out how football is a brain-dead pastime, how it hypnotizes our country, and how it distracts people from real issues. Most of these people care about the Grammys. Is there any wonder why Americans hate the left? Not directed at you, but directed at anyone who shits on football and likes Azalea Banks. It's the same thing, because Azalea Banks does music. It's cringe. Music.
Oh no, Azalea Banks is cringe. Wait, how does that have to do with me though?
Nothing, but it's a great fucking passage. That's why I wanted to read it. That's why I said it has nothing to do with you. No, but I don't even know.
But also, I shit on
what
football because.
What is that flag behind you? Is that Rakdos, the Magic the Gathering? Not the
Cuba.
Oh, really? That's the flag of Cuba, James? Wow, James, thank you so much.
This is the flag of
Wait, James. What does the flag of China look like? I don't even know, man. Wow, thanks for showing me.
China looks like this, but also with 5 stars. Okay.
Oh wow, thanks.
According to the 4 different social classes, and then the Chinese Communist Party.
James, sarcasm. I knew what the Cuban flag was. I meant
no, I understand. I just had to explain it to you.
You're just being a dickhead anyway.
Yeah.
Not your turn, Eddie. James, what is the flag I don't recognize?
So this is the flag of Mandalore.
Venezuela?
This is the flag of Mandalore. And just to be clear, I've had this for about 5 years now. Are
you trying to have sex with me?
That's why I am a Leninist. It's a joke, but not quite.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
And those are all the
No
clips
England. That's Poggers. No England.
Right,
Fuck
right.
yeah.
I gotta leave soon because I unironically tried to plan a social life for tonight by accident.
I envy that because I'm stuck in.
Going to hang with unironically has a girlfriend, so I have to judge him and be like.
I'm stuck at home right now. If I was back in school, if I was back.
Are you not back at school? Because you're at Yeah, sorry.
I'm an American.
Oh shit, you're public about that? There's only 8 people watching, so
I don't care right now. I had something to drink.
No, but for me, it's if someone can figure it out, they can figure it out. Because I'm not super worried about what they send to my school because I go to one of the most. I go to probably top 3-4 liberal schools in America. If you're here and you can basically do whatever you want, but in terms of our actual poli-sci department.
See, I'm studying
Oh
anthropology.
shit! Eddie said his internet cut out. He's
Mine
going to go
did
do
too.
Friday night stuff. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we get a great time.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
I study
we should
anthropology.
probably end soon, but we can talk about a couple more stuff.
Yeah. Okay. For sure. Yeah. No, I study anthropology. So, my department. I mean, I know you might be switching to poli sci or whatever. So, like,
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
I understand that totally.
But
So
I
basically,
fuck with that because when you contacted me, you were you said you were like a Marxist anthropologist or archaeologist, and I was just like, what?
that's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. Actually, it's
Yeah,
a big thing in my department.
I know it's a thing now. I just remember when you told me that, I was like totally like, holy shit, what the fuck is this?
Because it's also like literally, if you think about archaeology.
No, I mean it makes sense totally conceptually. Yeah.
You have processual archaeology, sure. Like you have the fucking people that are like, oh, we must stick to only what is being presented in front of us. These fucking ceramic pieces that we have labeled and we've looked at the maker's marks on and all this shit, whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, we've studied the differences between the porcelain of China and like, you know, like all this fake ass shit that they called whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm just letting you know because like any like seven fucking minutes, I gotta leave for like in 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So
actually, I gotta leave. Yeah, finish what you're saying, and I gotta go.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have stuff that I'm gonna do then too. But
As you should.
I have stuff to read. But either way. Yeah, and
Wait. You know what we should do? Dead ass.
What?
Friday next week. Come on the stream.
I will, and I'll join earlier if I know.
No. Like just you.
Oh, okay. Shit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like just hold what you're saying, and we'll do it on Friday.
Okay. Also, there's one last thing.
Yeah. Plug what you need to plug. By the way.
Yeah, no. So, okay. Well, so two last things then. Everyone here, I mean, I don't know how many people there are on the stream right now, but follow me on TikTok at High Fidelity, ChaiFidelElidy. I think I spelled that right. I'm a little bit drunk right now. But it's Friday.
On my stream.
It's Friday.
On my stream?
It's Friday. I gotta do what I gotta do. It also was my cousin's bat mitzvah, so like, all right.
Yeah, as you should. Just I don't have any cousins, but if I was at their bat mitzvah, actually I do, but they're Christian. So
yeah, it happens. It happens, you know, to the best of us. I was raised intermarriage, so intermarriage struggles.
As you should. All right, is that it?
No. Okay, one last thing. I'll also text you this if you want this, but Clubhouse. If you want to join Clubhouse, just
send me that shit. But we'll text each other after tonight. But I like dead ass next week. Hold me to it because I have no plans.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll put that in my calendar.
But I want to talk Judaism, Ethiopia, and all that stuff in detail.
Yes, let's do that. Let's absolutely do that. That would be a good thing.
Love you.
All right.
Love you, King.
All right, love you.
All right, see ya. Everyone, like the video. Remember, don't forget to like the video. It helps. Now you got a Muslim brother. I don't know you, but love you anyway. So yeah, you're my Muslim brother.
Love you. Smash
everyone up. Like the video. Smash that like button down below. Have a great Friday. Make sure you go outside. If you live in the suburbs and it's not dangerous, go for a run. Put some lights on you. Protect yourself from any oncoming cars. If you can't do that, just go for a walk. If you are stuck inside, you can DM me on Instagram, and I might be busy, but I always will respond eventually if it's positive. And I am always down for a FaceTime because there's not enough people who DM me where I wouldn't be down. You have to be over 18, obviously. If you're not, I will say call me later. And it doesn't mean actually call me later to respond to someone else who criticized me saying, oh, that means you want minors to call me. It's just a colloquialism and statement of fact that I don't want minors to talk to me. Anyway, be social, get outside. If not, DM me on Instagram. Love you all very much, and catch James and I next week.
Yes.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.